still all side ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
And that's just it, like propaganda in 1984.
Does it bother you if it's weed? So I don't know.
Yeah. Triggered.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is
Let's pull it down.
Are we recording?
Yeah, but
Oh.
it's not, I'll cut this off.
Like, this is my safe space.
Yeah.
You're triggering
This
my
is
safe.
technically your
Literally,
basement.
it's my
Doesn't get
basement.
much safer than the basement of your house.
Yeah, posters that
Yeah.
make me feel comfortable on the wall. You know? Yeah, I don't leave the house much. Yeah.
No.
So, bad ideas, good stories, number 30.
Yep.
Da 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 da. Hate.
Pop, 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 pop.
Yeah. That's how we line up the audio with
Muppet
the video.
mouth. It's the
We
only
have
way
to
to do
say
it.
like words like Muppet, banana,
Abortion. No, wait.
portion.
That's not enunciate
Classy
anything.
things, right? Yeah. And the more offensive it is, the easier it is to line up. Really?
Yeah. And you know we said it.
Yes. It's a permanent
When they say
record.
pumpkin, that doesn't sound like Dusty.
No. I worry so much about what the fuck comes out of my mouth and is on the permanent record. You know, like I looked up our podcast the other day trying to update our link tree page. And I'm like, well, I'll just Google the name of the podcast, Bad Ideas, Good Stories. And there's fucking websites I've never even heard of that were on there. Like Lipson? What is Lipson? That's us. Yeah. Okay. So we did do that. Nobody's just mirroring us. And I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah.
So we got YouTube. We've got Lipson. We've got Apple Play. We've got iTunes, Vimeo, Spotify. Fuck, we're on lots of different things.
And anyone can be.
Anyone.
If you get a Spotify account, you can be.
Yes.
But yeah, it's convenient because now it's easier to find for sure. And I like that there's like some audio and some video because there's a little mystery then, you know? Like,
Yeah, well,
you only ever listen to the audio, then you finally see the video, and you're like,
I sometimes
What?
I sometimes think it's the saving grace.
yeah,
that,
do I
like,
value their opinions anymore?
No. I like the saving grace is like I can delete at least one of the video accounts someday and it just hear my voice. You don't know what I look like. You can't find me.
Yeah.
That's the guy walking down the street that said that fucking thing.
Can't find you if I
Yeah.
wanted to. So we should probably discuss that we do have a guest today.
Yes.
I think this seems almost... Oh, let's wait a little longer.
You could introduce yourself.
I'm Rebecca. I'm a tattoo artist from New Brunswick, and I like a lot of different things.
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Right on.
But she doesn't like Red Bull. She doesn't like
Okay,
Red Bull,
fair enough.
So she's a water drinking.
No judgment. I don't even like Red Bull. I just drink it because it gets me torqued.
Oh, fuck, it'll get me torqued this
You know
one.
what I'm saying? Yeah.
You know.
No one likes meth. You know what I mean?
It's peach-flavored meth today in a can. I remember one time I was at a bar after I stopped doing drugs and stopped drinking. I'd go out with my friends, but I'd started drinking energy drinks when I go out. And I'd go through like 3 or 4 in a night, but still be able to fall asleep at the end of the night.
That's
Strange.
wild.
Yeah. And my one bartender buddy's like, that's bad for your heart. I'm like, I smoke speed every day for like 4 years.
Progress,
So this
not
is...
perfection.
Yeah. If we're going to start a list of things that are bad for me, like, okay, this is beyond it, I guess. But
Yeah.
not the focal point. So, what brings you out this way?
I really needed to get out of rural New Brunswick and work
Okay,
in a
fair
real shop. I haven't worked in a real shop since like 2018.
Well,
since
what counts as a real shop for you?
Not working out of my house.
Okay.
So
fair
I have
enough,
like this
fair
kind
enough.
of very
Yeah.
private underground, if you don't know I exist, I don't exist kind of operation going on where I've converted my old bedroom into a tattoo shop. So I have like a loft bed hidden by a curtain and then the rest of the room is just tattoo stuff. So people come in and it's not like super awkward, but I'm still not used to tattooing people in a non-professional setting. But I've worked in shops for like 8-9 years. I know what I'm doing. I have a bloodborne pathogens course, so I'm kind of doing better than some of the shops around. I fix a lot of stuff. My specialty is cover-ups, repair work, and I do a lot of custom stuff too.
Sure. And
Yeah.
you're humble, which is nice. I mean...
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good.
I fix a lot of their stuff. No, I'm just giving you a hard time. No, that's awesome because I mean, like to me, that's what tattooing was. Though when I started getting tattoos, it wasn't like a nice shop was somebody's converted garage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I remember the first one I got tattooed in was a converted garage, and she was like, "No, this is a legitimate shop." And today, probably, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't legal at the time because who would go in and certify that, I guess. But
Well, New Brunswick doesn't have any provincial guidelines at all.
Intriguing.
So I'm like, the government can stay there in their
Yep.
corner and stay out of my business, and I'll continue to do things in the cleanest, safest way possible.
yep.
Right? So.
In Japan, there's two different tiers of tattooing.
Okay.
You've got the old Irizumi masters that do wabori style, like full body tabori, hand poking style, and you've got the street front shops, which are kind of more like Western
A bit
tattoo.
more modern, kind of.
Well, yeah. They've got like flash on the walls, neon stickers, that kind of thing. And the neon sticker tattoo shops were licensed and the inspected. And the old school like tabori guys, you needed an introduction, and they had no signs, and you needed to be brought to the place. This is where they work out of. This is who they are.
Was tattooing not illegal in Japan, or what's going on with that?
So in Osaka specifically, what ended up happening is the government, because they really disapprove of tattoo culture, they put in a bylaw. It started as a bylaw where in Osaka, which is the second largest city in Japan other than Tokyo, which is you needed a medical license in order to practice tattooing because you were doing a piercing of the skin. So without a medical degree, you couldn't be a tattoo artist. And it was a $5,000 first fine, and it just kind of went up from there.
wild.
So the only people it affected were these licensed, registered tattooers. But it didn't affect the old tabori guys that were like kind of like underground, doing out of their homes or out of an extra room in the apartment, or renting an apartment and turning it into their dojo. So it was very interesting. Like registration led to confiscation. You know, and that's that libertarian idea. Like the more you let the government know what you're doing, the more they have control over what you're doing.
And then that's the negative aspect of that, right? And then the positive is when you do have government regulation overseeing major industry like oil industry, where it stops huge environmental problems happening, right?
That's a good
but
point.
Then that's the line that no one wants to really go with, because it's like a lot of the libertarians also, they're the type that would be in the oil industry as well. So that's not just the type of
that's very
lack
interesting.
of
That's
regulation they benefit from, right? It's not just my freedom, it's also let me make as much money as I want without somebody checking over my shoulder to make sure I'm doing it in an ecologically friendly or ethical way also.
I think that's what libertarian, especially in the U.S., has come to reflect.
Right.
Now,
it's the perverted version of the core.
Yeah,
right?
like it's like free, unchained free market capitalism versus the idea and the principle of liberty, which is I'm an individual. Let me have less government control over my existence, which is more like anarchism. You know,
it's closer to that.
Dial it
capitalism.
back and let smaller areas control their smaller areas, right? But then you have little kingdoms like Texas.
That's the problem.
Or
Exactly.
whatever,
And then you
know?
see what happens with them. With them, that's their whole problem with their infrastructure. What just happened is because it was privately owned and not regulated. And it was funny too, because they're trying to blame green energy and they're trying to blame windmills and all this stuff that froze up. And they're like, no, it was these like control
God.
boxes and things that froze that were supposed to be set up for these sort of temperatures, but because there was no regulation, they just didn't do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's it was the oil or the coal powered plants and the nuclear plants that were having issues because their control mechanisms weren't built for that kind of temperature, and they weren't
This
insulated
happened
properly.
in the 1980s, and they were like, "Okay, guys, let's not let this happen again. You guys, should figure this out." And they were like, "Sure, we'll work on it." And it never happened.
Right. Well, and because of who made them. If there's no governing body to make you regulate that until it happens, you don't give a shit, right? It's like not needing insurance until you need it, right? And then when they do it again, they personally, the CEOs in those companies are almost never affected. The governor or whatever his fuck it is, Ted Cruz, he fucked off to Cancun with his kids. These guys can all afford to do that. He got there,
And then he had to turn
and
around.
he was like, "Well, I guess I better come back."
Oh,
yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
Twitter exploded, that
which
poor
is good.
fucker.
Fuck that guy, right? That's the whole point. But that's what these guys have always been able to do. And exactly like you said, it happened in the 80s. I guarantee it's like the same sort of shit happened here, even with what government we have now, because our current Saskatchewan party is the remnants of the former Progressive Conservative Party in this province, which a bunch of them went to jail at the end of the 80s because they were all corrupt. They were all embezzling. When the new government came in, there was like 40 of them all fucking went to jail. So
I didn't even know that.
that was the Grant Devine government, and that's like where what's his name there, our former premier Brad Wall, that's where he cut his teeth. His first job out of high school was going and interning for that government, and then a bunch of them went to jail.
Carrying envelopes
and then
of
20
money
years
from one guy
later,
to the
yeah,
other,
exactly.
running numbers for the PC party.
Who fucking knows? You know what I mean? But like, and again, and it's the same
Breaking
people
legs.
coming back again to do it, and then everybody's like, "Oh, I'm sure glad that they're in charge." It's like, they ripped you off 20 years ago, right? And it's the same methods they're using, but people get short fucking memories for stuff like that. And again, It's what have you done for me lately? Not what did you do to me 20 years ago? Because those are the same guys that'll tell them that they're going to keep the jobs in their community and we're going to bring more energy sector jobs back here. But in the meantime, they use that as a bait to lower regulation in Alberta because nobody's going to take the jobs out of Alberta. And Alberta goes, well, look at Saskatchewan's regulations lower. We have to meet the same level of regulation because we want to keep our business here. And then they do that and the jobs never come here and they get to have lower regulation. It's a really fun little game they play.
Well, there's that joke that Ayn Rand walks into a bar, and some other philosophers, they all walk into the bar and order some food and a drink, and then they die because there's no regulations telling them that they need to have a certain level of minimum
there was
standards.
Way too much rat shit in that Patsa. It turned out rat at fucking Tui.
You don't have a right to tell me what to do. But the other side is like, I think those people that can do this stuff responsibly and should have a right. Maybe it's an
and I'd say
elitist
you'd be
attitude.
an example of it working then. Right, you're clearly you're doing well. You're growing your business.
She's a criminal.
You're not hurting anybody. Right,
Outlaw.
And
Outlaw.
I pay
right?
my taxes eventually.
But that's the idea of that working then, right? Like that people are when you're personally responsible, then you can do that. It's just not everybody's personally fucking responsible. Very, very many people are irresponsible. Very many people are purposely putting other people in danger because it benefits them.
I guess we got to balance the benefit of a babysitter state versus
yeah.
personal responsibility.
For sure.
And I think the more we regulate, the more we have to license, the more we need all these pieces of paper to fill out a bureaucracy, the more they treat you like a perpetual child.
Yeah.
And personal responsibility has been removed, and people scream, what about an adult? Do I need a grown up to take care of me? And do I have permission to do this? Can I leave my house after 10 p.m.? Is that illegal?
Right.
Do I have
But
permission?
again, when left to their own devices, can't be expected to put on a mask when around other people.
Well,
has to be
some.
mandated.
Some.
I know that's the problem though, right? Because that's who we have to legislate to. You can't legislate to the people that can take care of themselves.
But then you end up
gotta,
continually
unfortunately-
restricting
I
those that
agree.
can't.
Yeah,
like
man,
one of
it
the
sucks.
perfect examples is the restriction of sex work and adult entertainment in Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
The government made the moral decision, we're going to protect you from yourself. What about the children? What about our moral standards? The only province in the country you can't have strip clubs.
Yep.
Because we decided it's in your best interest that you shouldn't be able to see a nipple while having a beer.
Well, and I would argue that much of that isn't even outrage. It isn't protest. There isn't groups in the streets saying
No,
we
there
can't have
isn't
this.
at all.
It's at the church that guy goes to. They're all going, no, we don't want that in
It's
our community.
the blue-haired old
and they know
ladies
who
and the old
donates to
boys
them,
club.
right? Because
they want to keep their
that's
positions.
who keeps sending their checks in to
Yes.
donate every time they got another
That's
fucking
who actually
election.
shows up to vote are the
Yep.
conservatives or
Yep.
are the religious right.
Yep.
And they're the ones that show up to City Hall and say, we don't want this in our community. The Saskatoon bylaws, they had things in there like an adult entertainment facility, like anything that shows nipples and beer, right? Or even just shows nipples, or a brothel, or a bikini bar, or an adult modeling, whatever, can't be within 400 meters of a school, a church, or a residence. So it got
You
pushed.
can't put it in town.
Yeah,
You know what I
to
mean? Those
the
are
far
things that are in
outskirt
towns. Yeah.
industrial area
Yeah.
where there's no facilities, no bars, no restaurants, nothing that you could renovate and just say, here, we now have a
Well,
strip club.
and that's an entertainment business. You don't have regular bus service. Cabs probably rarely go out to the industrial area, especially in the evenings. Like all the things that you would do for a casino, you're not going to do for this. And again, with the money
Casino's
coming
another
in from,
example.
and again, that's a good one where it's like people keep getting, well, what about the panhandlers? And if we had a casino downtown, it's like, first off, everywhere you go that has a casino, they put it in the middle. They don't put it way out on the fringes somewhere where it takes you forever to get to. They put it in the middle, and then they use the dollars from that to pay for security around the facilities. So if people are panhandling and whatnot, they can take care of it.
Or God forbid, you take the dollars from that and you reinvest it in the social safety net
Fucking
of the
right.
neighborhood,
Tax
and you
them
give
accordingly.
You
Yeah.
give food
Build the
out.
community up
you
instead of
give
siphoning
shelters
out of it.
You build stuff,
Yeah.
the infrastructure with the money being spent. But
You can't siphon that extra 15% when you do that, though.
yeah, exactly right.
It's hard to get your bonus when you're helping the homeless.
So back to tattooing. You specialize in cover-ups.
Yes.
Which says that there's a lot of bad work in your neighborhood.
Yes.
So that's a very interesting niche market because you see people that are like, I specialize in like Scully, biomech, and like Japanese themed stuff, but very seldom do you see people that specialize in fixing, not necessarily shoddy work, but like improving stuff that people aren't happy with. And it's a good niche to have.
That look. Not necessarily shoddy.
Well, the problem is most of it is shoddy. So I'll do anything from, touching up old work that just needs a little bit more structure, a little bit more saturation and stuff like that, all the way up to things that other tattoo artists have told the client, there's nothing that we can do. There's nothing anyone can. That's just get it lasered. There's nothing else but laser. And then I'm like,
You're the
okay,
second
here's
opinion.
how I would do it. And then I just kind of look at every tattoo I'm doing as a kind of puzzle.
Okay.
What's there already?
Yeah.
What does the client want, not want? How big can I do it? What's their budget? So there's all these limiting factors in what I can do with a piece compared to a new tattoo. It's just a blank canvas, right? And in some ways it's kind of easier because instead of having a million options and not really knowing where to go with it, you're kind of like narrowed down
You've
a
got
certain
something
pathway.
you have to work around.
So that's where
Yeah.
kind of I specialize in trying to figure out what's the best approach for each project. And I really love doing it, and I'm kind of good at it. So that's kind of what I push. If you go on my
Nice.
Instagram,
Oh,
the
well, how
entire
does somebody
portfolio
find you?
is just before, after, before, after, before, after, right? So,
How does somebody find you on Instagram if we want to look it up?
so my Instagram is just my first name. So it's REBECHKA_E. I'm also on Facebook, so I use both of those platforms if anyone wants to reach me. Some people don't have Facebook or don't have Instagram, and worst case scenario, they can email me. I don't have a phone at all. I disconnected my phone, and I just used Wi-Fi, so that cut down my costs. I live
You
with...
feel a bit like a modern day pirate when you do that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
See, that's what I was wondering, because I've never been really tech savvy at all, and I've got buddies that have really gotten into gaming, for example, over this last winter that were not previously, and now they've got huge fucking monitor arrays, and they're talking about all this shit, and I'm just like, God, I kind of wish I got into that because I feel like doing shit like that, going around and snagging Wi-Fi from places and having a backpack full of stuff.
Yes.
That you're like, well, this is how I do my banking and I exist, and you're just you pull this fucking stuff out. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I like kind of being able to be very minimalist, be able to pack all my gear into one backpack, throw it in my car, drive off, do some repair work for friends in another city, and then
See,
drive
and
back
I think when
home.
people think minimalist, especially out here, it's I need a fur hat, I need a cabin, I need to use an axe.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's like a technological
when you lean into
atavism.
the
You
technology
throw it
of it, right? You can be super minimalistic, but it's with these little tools that I don't understand. I don't know how they're built. I don't know how to work them, but it's the same kind of idea. Instead of a pocket full of knives and flints and shit, right?
Yeah,
You've got
yeah.
stuff that actually works in this world, right?
Yeah.
You end up being like a techno nomad.
Yeah, man.
yeah.
And motherfuckers should start dressing like that while we're at it. I want to see
Very
more techno
cyberpunk and-
nomads. on
It'll
the
just be
fucking roll.
cyberpunk.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, I've done lots of guest spots where I've just got my iPad and my phone, so I stay entertained. I got my games, I've got my social media, all, and almost every hotel I stay in has a business center, so you can access your email, and they have a printer. So I print anything out I need from the business center of the hotel, or you can just go to the people that are working if they don't have a business center and say, hey, can I email you and you print me something? And then you go to Staples, you could photocopy it any size, or God forbid, if you actually know how to draw, you can use your Sharpies directly on the skin. You freehand, and then you tattoo over
I
that.
had to do that today.
See, and I think
That's crazy
that's
talk.
real tattooing, because you can be that fucking pirate and tattooing out of your hotel.
Yeah.
And one tattoo covers that night's hotel.
Yeah.
And your food and everything else. Or if you're comfortable and you've got a place in somebody's house, or you've got a little room in the back of a skateboard shop, or whatever the case may be, as long as your rent is low enough, you could just move. But tattooing changed over the last 20 years, because when I was doing it 20 years ago, when you came to town, oh my God, a tattooer is coming to town. Now it's like, oh, another tattooer is coming to town. What do you do different than the 3 people I already get tattooed by? And
And there wasn't the TV shows and all the
Yeah.
other shit, how it was so, I felt
Saturation.
I feel like Saskatoon was
Saturation.
always a place where I saw more tattooed people per capita than I did a lot of other places. So it was more part of the community than maybe some other places, in the early 2000s, for example. But it still wasn't it was an issue going for jobs and shit. It was still something that had to be addressed. Whereas now I don't feel like it is that so much. And maybe that's the TV shows and shit.
TV
right?
and the internet changed
Yeah.
the game a lot. Reg, my mentor,
Yep.
he apprenticed 9 people. And Reg, at an early
He
time...
tattooed for a long time.
Yeah, and he was doing big, back pieces and sleeves when the
Or
only
I'm
other...
assuming maybe he still does tattoos.
Yeah, he's still kicking
around.
around.
Yeah.
But he does it out of people's places or out of his own little studio. But he was doing big work when the only other person in Western Canada, well, that we were seeing, because it was pre-internet, were like Paul Jeffries, Smiling Buddha, you know?
Oh, sure.
So if you wanted a sleeve,
name.
Reg could do a sleeve for you. And then the guys that apprenticed under him said, okay, big work is normal. It's not just pick and stick.
Interesting.
So everybody aspired to do the
'cause
big work.
Big work's an adaptation for a lot of the shit that I saw starting out. Like,
Yeah, like I like patchwork where
yeah.
you do here,
that's what
here,
I enjoy.
here,
This
and then
also, yeah.
eventually, if you want, you can blend it together with fire or smoke
Yeah.
or background. But patchwork, bang, 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 bang. Now, Reg would be like, "No, I'm designing a whole sleeve." Ben, Jody, these guys were like, "I'm designing a whole sleeve." And so our friends, they were all trying to cut their teeth doing big work, and so big work was really common, really fast in Saskatoon when a lot of other places didn't have a maniac like Reg trying to.
Well, and I think it's interesting too because those guys that they would be like, no, I want to do a big piece that's all my vision. Also, I'm not saying they're notoriously difficult to work with. I just know that all those guys you just listed, I'm all like, You're having a hard conversation if you want to convince them to do something other than what their vision is.
Yeah, we're all god complexes and egomaniacs.
whatever it is.
Yeah,
But that's
exactly.
interesting that maybe that level of ego drove that to where you're like, nah, I don't want to do a little tiny thing. I want to do a whole arm, or I want to do a big enough chunk that I can do something interesting. And then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, well, no, that's what we can do here when nobody else is really doing it. And it was not even that, like, that's the thing. It was like, no, it's what I want. That's what my ego wants me to put on you, not the vision of how I picture tattooing being and how the culture becoming.
I feel two different ways. Are we graphic designers providing a service, or are we artists that people come to because they appreciate our art?
That's
These
interesting.
These are two
Somewhere in between.
These are two
and
different
you know what?
things.
And I think like you depending on the artist, they can be whatever they want, and it might even be depending on the client. Maybe
I
some
like to
clients that's what you.
chameleon, right? So
Why
depending
not?
on
Why not, right?
what someone's asking, and see, my thing is that the last shop I worked at, my boss would do all the large scale things, and then he would throw everything else at me. I was like the catch-all kitchen sink jack of all trades,
Yeah.
so I'd have to do everything from like big giant pieces of tribal that no one likes doing, or tiny little dandelions blowing in the wind and all those
I've got a
Pinterest
few.
things.
Yeah,
So,
all those
so I
Pinterest
kind of
tattoos,
had to do everything at the drop of a hat in 2 seconds. So,
Yeah.
you know, I took pride in being able to take in anything, anytime, and do a few piercings in between. And at the end of the day, clean everything and just kind of be a workhorse.
Yeah. Well, and to me, that's a trade, right? That's any trade I've ever heard. That's what you learn how to run the broom
Yes.
before
Yeah.
you do the books, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it should fucking be, I think, because otherwise, how do you don't know all the aspects of the business? Even if there's a few portions of it you do really, really well,
You become
with
a
you
very
knowing how
narrow specialist.
exactly, which
and
is
then you
okay if you can live in
drown
that
in-
world.
in other
But as soon as you have
situations.
as soon as you got to do it on your own, or you don't have someone else who fills those gaps for you, and then you've been the gap filler, so you get to be that.
You're
right?
the gap filler.
Yeah.
Graham and
Jesus
I,
Christ.
Graham and I were discussing this, and I didn't try or even begin specializing in tattooing until I was doing it for 17 years.
Right.
Because our job was anything coming in the door. That's our job. You pick it, I stick it. That's it. You know, you want that off the wall? Where do you want it? Okay, it'll fit. We can do that, and we just copy. Or if you want one of pieces of that I draw for you, hopefully it's going to look good. You want a fucking Frankenstein portrait? Okay, he's got bolts out his neck and he's squared head. He's got to be Frankenstein. It doesn't matter if everything else is fucked up, you know? So
It's not portrait, it's caricature.
Right, it ends up. It was supposed to be one, but it looks enough like it. The guy with the afro and the guitar, yeah, that's Jimi Hendrix. You know, so it's hard to miss.
Solid, yeah.
But so I forced myself to do all that work, and then I started realizing the stuff that I wasn't really good at, and I didn't draw well, and the stuff that I really enjoyed drawing, and I started gravitating towards my art. And now I'm even in the process of discovering what my art is. And luckily, I have a studio of people that are workhorses. You know, that's your job. You're learning the trade. You're doing whatever comes in the door. You have to do that ABC stuff before you're allowed to be an artiste. You know, we're not Andy Warhol. You know, like you can't just like throw it out. No, I'm above that. But I see more and more young artists that come in, not you, but like a young artists that come in, and 2 years in, I'm a specialist. You can't tell me what to do.
2 years in, I was still trying to figure out, you know, okay, this looks good for now, and then I have things that are 7 years old, and I'm like, okay, let me redo all that for you, right? So it
That's
doesn't
cool.
happen often, but until you've been tattooing 10 fucking years, and you can see how, hey, maybe the line that I thought was really nice and straight and clean in a left to right sort of way is not the consistent depth I thought it was. So you'll see things that look clean at first, heal really differently based on if they're in the dermis or subcutaneous and things like that.
Hey, and that's not art.
And that's what
the technical aspects
it's
of it.
very technical, right? So it's being a tattoo artist is a blend of kind of being a mechanic, an artist, and a whole bunch of things like medical, right? So you really have to be well-rounded, because like if you know nothing of the medical side of it, you're gonna give people infections and God knows what else. Like if you're not mechanically inclined and you're running coils and your shit breaks all the time and you don't have a machine builder dude helping you out, you're just gonna cry and drink lots of whiskey like I did. And if you can't fucking draw, good luck. Like,
well,
unless you're like doing portraits.
You might be in the wrong field. Then maybe tattooing isn't the thing.
And there's exceptions to every one of those that you're going to find, because we
Right.
are not a governed trade. We don't have a guild. We don't have a trade
And the
union. There's no
university
there's no qualification standards. There's no hey, I'm calling the trade, the tattoo artist, the brotherhood, and
will
reporting
someone
you.
pay you?
No,
That's the qualification standard, right? Will someone pay you to do this? Maybe you're a tattooist.
Or can you con somebody into paying you? And that's where the fix-up trade comes in, which is great. It's going to be necessary as long as you got like junior idiots jumping on the trade. Well, saying I've had people come back with sleeves that were like full sleeves, 12, 15 years old, saying, can you redo this? I'm like, what, you didn't notice within the first 2 years it wasn't what you wanted? You also came to me 15 years ago and said, you're the guy I want a sleeve from.
My tastes have changed. I would like to change this.
Yeah, you've gotten 15 years of experience now. I want you to redo this. I'm like, no. Well, sure, if you want to pay me, I'll give you a discount per hour, but it's going to be a full sleeve cost.
Yeah, there's got to be some line there.
There is. Like, we do a 2 year.
Come back decades later. And,
right.
Yeah.
So we'll touch it up within 2 years. And if you haven't noticed there's a problem with your tattoo within 2 years.
2 years? Mine's 6 months.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I tell people, if it doesn't look exactly like this, and I explain what to look for, because some clients seem to have no freaking idea what needs a touch up or doesn't. They'll send pictures of perfectly healed work. Does this need a touch up? I'm like, does it look like it does? No, then no. And then other people will come in with stuff that obviously needs a fix up, and they're like, oh, I didn't know. And I'm like, how do you not know? But they don't have the perspective that we have, right? They don't have the same perception as we do. So I had to notice over the years that just because I can see it or I can picture it doesn't mean the other person can.
Sure.
This is
and you do have a literal different perspective too, because you're looking at it from there and they're going from here, and even in a mirror, you know what I mean? So like even how it sits on the skin, you can see, still argue like it's tough to convey that because you can't possibly see it from the same angle physically.
You learn exactly the people that need legislation to wear a mask.
Yeah, right.
These are the same people that say, well, you said there's a free touch-up. I need my touch-up. There's absolutely nothing wrong with your tattoo, but it's free, and I need that touch-up. Or,
Nope.
There's something wrong with this. Well, what's wrong with it? I don't know. There's just something wrong with it. It's not the color tint I wanted. Well, shitty. I can't make it lighter. You should have mentioned that right off the bat. Well, I'm going to put a Yelp review online, and you're the shittiest shop in town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
fine,
and I assume these people are comparing like stuff they see in magazines and online to this on people who like never go in the sun and like constantly moisturize their skin and look after their shit,
Vampires.
And it's like, well, I got my beat up old fucking skin that I've been in the sun every day and I got it full of grease and shit. Like, why doesn't it look as nice as that? Hey, like
I'm bringing in an image of a world famous tattooist from Rome who gets paid like $400 an hour, 6-year waiting list. But I want you to do that. Yeah.
Fucking right.
Right? And but it's on the internet. Why can't you do that?
Yeah, it's just art. Why can't you copy it?
Go to Rome.
I don't get a lot of that. I get a lot of like, I want this, and I'm like, okay, I can redraw that for you, and it'll look a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people just kind of bring stuff off Google or Pinterest, and it's not bad, but it's like I could definitely improve like either the composition or the line weight or the shading or whatever. So I kind of try to push everything without drastically changing what I'm doing, because the client will be like, that's really nice, but it's not what I asked for. So I have to explain. It's going to be extremely similar, but I'm not ripping off someone's artwork. Because if someone did that to me, I'd want to rip off their head.
Well, and almost everybody's a better tattooer than me. So when they bring stuff in, I'm like, I can't fix it.
Well, and I would
Go
think too
somewhere
that
else.
most people,
Above my pay
once they
grade.
have something like that for more than a few years, once they realize that this isn't an individual piece anymore. I did just get somebody else's thing, got somebody sticking on me. They're probably going to regret that a little bit. They're probably going to, I wish I got this personalized a little more or whatever, right? And they
especially
don't
if
usually
they start
regret the other
seeing
way.
it on other people.
Yeah,
and
right.
They're like,
yes. Yes, yeah, and I get the idea of having like, oh, this is because I've done this. I don't know how many times, like even with you, been like, well, this is what I want, and I'll say it because I'm not going to give you a picture. I don't really know. I want this idea, and I want your version of that idea. That's why I'm with you. You know what I mean?
I remember the
But when
microphone on your neck.
Yeah, if I wanted somebody else's version of the idea, that's who you'd go to, right? And I think the more person tattoos, a lot of times that's what you get to.
Yeah.
But when you're first getting some, it's kind of like, you're like, well, why don't you just put this thing on?
Does
me?
this guy suck or does he not?
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah,
qualification.
right. Will I get hepatitis or will I not?
Yeah, will I die? I like now that my clients, they're like, you have a specific style, and if I'm going to you, I'm expecting that style.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my style, it's fast, it's angry, it's loose, you know? And if a fast, angry, and loose isn't your style, I'm not your guy.
Those are my three middle names,
On
actually.
any level that we're bringing this to, fast, angry, loose. There we go.
That's your constant waiver forms that you have for every activity.
Conversation,
Look, is this a walk in the
sex,
park,
business,
whatever the
fast,
fuck you
angry, and
want.
loose.
Yeah. I started playing racquetball recently. I
Yeah.
gotta get a whole bunch of new ones set up.
I scream. I'm in like short shorts and a halter top.
Wow, that is aggressive.
Fast, angry, loose. Anyways, yeah.
Okay, I did have a question about cover-ups. Do you find that lots of people are like, well, can't you just put this over it? And
I
they don't
want
really
a yellow
get the work of-
sunflower on top of this, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let me show you in Photoshop in about 2 seconds why that doesn't work. So then I take the sunflower, I take the photo of what they have, I overlay it, and I put it on multiply so that they can see right through it. And I'm like, now you get it? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh. So I use a lot of technology instead of just talking to the client and trying to, and they can't picture it. They're not artists.
That's
I
my-
just,
that's
I
my
just
biggest
show
problem.
them. I just show them.
Yeah.
Instantly they get it, right?
Yeah.
So it just solves a lot of...
Because you're an artist and that's
See,
what
we
you
have
do.
different approaches. I use the word no.
I like that word. I'm learning to use the no because I didn't get to use it at work, and now I'm the boss, and I'm like, no, I
Yeah.
won't do that. I won't do your hands or your necks or your stupid. One person just asked me
Stupid.
for like a couple's tattoo on their hand, and I'm
Yeah.
like, A, I think that's not necessarily the least regrettable thing I've ever heard, and B, if you do end up breaking up, there's no room for a cover up.
Yeah, it's a tough one to fix. Yeah, you like mitts? Because you're going to be wearing lots of mitts, bud.
Right? It's something that, like, I think about long term, you know, let's say they break up and it's on their hand, they're going to be looking at it
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Well-
no. And I'll just say flat out, nope, I don't, ethically, nope.
Most of the people that come
Right.
into our shop and want names tattooed are new loves. They're
Yeah.
like engaged, they're dating, they're freshly married.
Under 10 years.
Now, my mom and dad got divorced at 30 years, and I will guarantee you my mom would be regretting his name if it was tattooed on her. And
Right.
I got it 30 years
Yep.
ago. And that's what we cover up more names than we put on.
Yeah.
We cover up
You
more
want to
names
throw a
than-
name on you? How's your grandpa doing? What's
Yeah,
grandma's name?
that's are
Let's
they
get a
gone?
Mary on
Can they
there.
fuck
You know,
anything
you're
up?
probably going to be cool with that.
Yeah,
But
memorial
picking,
tattoos are great.
Whoever you're with currently is
I like memorial tattoos because they can't fuck up their memory.
exactly.
Like if you get a band tattoo
Yep.
that starts sucking, you know, that's a perfect example.
You find out they're all rapists.
Yeah,
You're like, God damn
Marilyn-
it, the whole
See,
band.
Marilyn Manson tattoo cover-ups
That's
are
it, bro.
huge right now.
Yeah.
People are bugging
Yeah,
out. They're like,
yeah.
oh my God, I got this guy's
Yeah.
face
Yeah.
on me. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, because
you
he,
did.
was the thing he said he was.
Yeah, he was edgy Satanist fucking power.
I'm hoping like
Weird.
Chili Peppers are a safe bet.
Yeah.
They've been
Yeah.
around a while.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is
Sooner or
I
later
don't
they'll be
have
Me Too'd.
any band tattoos. Not one. And that's odd because like that's my whole
'Cause you're
fucking
punk
thing. I
as
love
fuck.
fucking music and that's
Well,
my whole.
you have a
I got
punk
rock.
tat-
It says
yeah,
down
punk
here.
rock
Yeah. You know what I
tattoo.
mean? But like I don't have any band tattoos, and I don't know if maybe that was it. You know, because I've noticed my changes, my musical. No, that's not true. I do have a Kim Necroman right here from the Necromantics.
Wow, the
that's the only
Necromantics
one.
are the one that did it, eh?
Weird.
Yeah. I've got
Maybe that's why I didn't get any more.
I've got that Sick of It All logo tattooed on me. Actually, when I was
Wow.
18, I turned 18. I went to the tattoo shop. Reg, my mentor. I need a Slapshot logo and a Sick of It All logo. Hardcore, straight edge, militant. Yeah, I'm so much different now. It's like 30 years later, I'm a
Yeah.
different guy.
Yeah. No.
I'm still.
Your hair's actually shorter now, I think.
Yeah, right. I started cutting into my scalp to get it like a little more militant.
Yeah. Jesus. What the fuck are we talking about?
But yeah, those are the only band tattoos.
All right, band
I'd like to get an agnostic front tattoo. I've thought about that one. There's a ton of bands, like mostly hardcore bands that really influenced my life philosophy trajectory. You know, I guess, you know, my full back piece is a dream I had about the Cro-Mags album cover. It was a lion.
Really?
Yeah. And
That's awesome.
right? And I was 19 years old, and I got a tribal lion on my back based off of the Cro-Mags Best Wishes album cover.
That's amazing.
Yeah, a 19-year-old Pat getting a full tribal back piece.
Yeah.
Fucking figured that
Yeah,
out. Under,
lion, yeah.
that's
Hey?
not going to be dated at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I just figured you more of an orangutan. But...
A rear view of an orangutan full color. Like,
oh, jeez, yeah. Peek
yeah.
your back over your shoulder.
What's up?
Looking sassy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, cover-ups. Yeah, because I always wondered about that. Because the ones I've seen done well, that's what it is. It's like you take the existing shit and like, no, I'm gonna make this longer and that bigger and turn this into that. And here's this thing now that doesn't look like a pile of shit.
There's a big trend right now, which my Nostradamus 5-year prophecy is going to be a lot of regret. I see scarification in the future to remove it because people, and it's usually the same people in the 90s that got lots of like tattoos of sailor shit, are now like getting solid black, you know, like
Really?
just like black sleeves, black chest panels, and
And like covering up existing stuff.
Yes, covering it up, and you could kind of see stuff underneath. Usually, it's like nautical stars and ships and stuff, but like the hardcore scene, like this big solid black, and we're talking like big areas of black.
So what's the driving force behind this new trend?
Edginess?
It's just edgy.
You know,
Well,
like maybe there's an
here's my
existential
thing.
apocalypse.
As soon as I see
going
that,
on.
I think, okay, that's someone who was in a gang or had some like in my head.
It's
When
tattoo
I,
culture
When I
shit,
see
yeah.
that though, right? When I see a big chunk of tattoo that's been clearly blacked
Don't
out,
they call that like,
I'm like,
piercer arm?
I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
that too.
That's
Piercers,
some
body piercers.
regrettable shit you had. You know what I mean? Like you had something you had to cover the fuck up, but maybe that's it. You
It
know,
is
maybe
the sailor dated kind
it's,
of.
It's like, no, I've got this blacked out chunk. It's like, oh shit, you must have been into some shit. You had to black out that chunk of your tattoos. Is I don't know if that's it or not. That's just what I would think when I see that. You know?
Interestingly enough, there's this movement in the tattoo scene, and they're like tattoo models, and like here's a tattoo I did, and they're artists, right? And here's a picture of my huge boobs in a like bikini, you know, and it's like, what the fuck, you know, like which is it? Are you like a porn star or are you a tattoo artist? Or I guess
Why not
it's
both?
2020, you can be both, you know.
Saggy balls sell.
But they're
you know
going
what I
to
mean? Like-
affect each other, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, like, I would love to be into the OnlyFans thing and make a bunch of, like, you know,
Porn?
different kinds of art. We'll say, yes, porn. Porn. But at the same time, I understand that if I get into that, I have to be ready to have that blend into my other profession where I'll have clients who start hitting on me or even worse. Who knows, right? So
Sex
you
sells.
kind of have to pick which one you want to do because they
Well,
will
and that's
affect
I
each
feel like
other.
that's just kind of right now because it's gonna. I feel like it's gonna get to a place where it's like
Everybody
being a Kim
does sex
Kardashian,
work?
for example, like.
Or nobody. Well,
You know what I mean? Like she's famous for being famous. She put out sex tapes. She's a model. She'll sell her ass, but she'll also sell perfume, and none of that's a hindrance to the brand. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Whereas I think that's where it's going to get to, where it'll be like having an OnlyFans doesn't hinder your brand.
We're trying to get rid of all the different forms of stigma, right?
Exactly, and I
just
think that's what it's gonna
do
get to
whatever
a
the
point.
fuck you
Exactly,
want,
right?
except hurting others.
Yeah.
that's a nice idea.
And I think it will though, because
Fuck the consequences.
because I don't think stuff like we've just used OnlyFans as an example is something that's going to go away. You know, there's going to be pornography. There's going to be people wanting to make money off it. Doesn't that angle on that doesn't seem to really hurt anybody. So I think it's something that's only become more because I mean, there's people now like school teachers or nurses. You see shit like losing their job because they had an OnlyFans thing or whatever, right? It's we're going to be 10, 15 years from now looking back on that's kind of fucking ridiculous because that's how people are going to continue to get through school and be oh wow I was kind of a stripper for a bit, haha, we laughed about it, you know, like it'll be the same thing. I did an OnlyFans thing for a summer when I was hot and young and I did what I could while I did, you know what I mean, and it'll be
Look
everybody.
at grandma's cooch, kids.
Yeah, well, you know what, and maybe
know.
we're not all such fucking prudes about it that we're, you know,
Yeah.
we're all worked up about it, I guess.
Well, it depends. You know, what is it? Chaos before order.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, man.
How deep do you go with this stuff? Like being involved with the adult entertainment industry, like 18 years old working in porn stores, you know, 20 or no, early 30s running a stripper agency, working with strippers, all that stuff, being around it. Nina Hartley is a nurse. She used to be a porn star when there was only a handful of porn stars, you know, in like the I think early 90s. Nina Hartley. She's now a nurse that works exclusively with the adult entertainment industry and like for health and in LA, you know, like Long Beach area. And she's like, so exactly why is it that porn needs to keep getting more extreme when we're stitching women shut? When you want to see how many chopsticks you can shove in a woman, when does that stop being erotic and just become misogynistic? And this is where porn is going. Now, hey, look, I've got an OnlyFans. Look at my nipple. Like, that's different than the extreme bang bust.
I wish you'd have had a little more camera.
You like that
angle on
one? Yeah.
You
So-
tossing nips away.
Well, extreme bang bust, where you pick some girl up on the side of the road, simulate it, hey, you need a lift, and then she gets gangbanged and dumped on the side of the road in a very, a lack of reverence. And this is where young people are being educated on sex. This is where
Well, here's my
children
problem.
are like, I'm choking my girlfriend
Yeah.
when I kiss her.
No, right, and again, this is entertainment industry shit. This is like people thinking that like movies is how you act as a human being, right? Seeing porn and thinking that's how you have a relationship.
So that's how you make
It's
money
like-
during COVID.
What's that? Well, no.
So I can produce
Oh
porn
no,
now.
sure. Right. That, but I mean, like you're saying though, like where kids are like, well, they're choking their girlfriends when they're kissing because they've seen this shit in porn. It's like, again, we shouldn't be using these things as guiding fucking examples of how to live our lives. The TV shows, the movies and shit we watch shouldn't be, but it is. It is what
It
we
is.
do, right?
And this is like
but it's like
social
we should
media.
become aware of that. And I mean, I think I kind of fucking am, but I think more of us should be than like being like, well, I fuck like that because I've seen it in a movie. It's like, well, is that the reason you should do that though? Like,
Yes.
you talk like that because you've seen it in a movie too. This is how a tough guy talks, so you talk like that in a movie. Well, that's not real. None of it's fucking real. That's all imaginary scenarios. This is a real scenario. How should you treat somebody? With compassion, with thoughtfulness, with kindness.
Yes, 100%. But that isn't being taught.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, man.
So, like, you look at popular culture, whether it's pornography or, here's an example, suburban and urban youth emulating gangster movies.
Yep.
And so which came first, art or reality? Is
Yep.
reality copying art, or is art copying reality? Because the people that are producing this material would say, oh, we're just giving you a window into the urban reality. But the urban reality is basing their behavior off of that window, whether it's through hip-hop music or gangbanger movies. Yo, I'm going to shoot
Tattooing.
you.
Yeah, man.
Well, yeah, or
extremist versions of everything, right? Get glorified through any sort of media. It doesn't matter what it is. Some extremist version of it's going to be, and then that becomes what it is, right?
So-
That's what you think gang culture is because of one movie where it kind of sparked everybody's interest, and then 10 more movies come after that, solidifying that and going, no, this is the narrative that we find entertaining, and then the reality of it's different.
But no one wants to watch the mild, normal version of
Exactly.
things.
But again, that's
It
the whole point.
distorts everything.
These are not documentaries. This is not a history class. We should not be watching it and then going like, well, now I'm going to form my worldview around
But I don't
this-
think it's a
this
conscious
fake-
decision.
I know, right? But that's why if we're doing it unconsciously, then we should as a whole be like, okay, let's make sure I remember for the next 2 hours, this is entertainment time. Not take this all in and then be like, okay, my worldview has changed drastically because of this and I have to treat my neighbors and friends differently. Like,
I
we all
think-
need to, I need to do it. That's what I'm saying. Like, my anxiety dropping with Trump not being president is an example of me being actively involved in having that problem. You know what I mean?
Turn the TV off.
Yeah, fucking rights, exactly. But then again, it's the old draw of like, yeah, but I also know that there's something going on. I can be ignorant to it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And I mean, it does affect me negatively, and I'm probably not getting a lot of positive out of it. But then I feel like I'm being a Pollyanna, head in the sand kind of fucker if I'm just being like, well, I just won't look then, And I'm like, yeah, but somebody's got to fucking look, right? We can't all not look, because then what if this continues and perpetuates, and it's all because I didn't look and I didn't pay attention? That's the shit I worry about.
well, okay, so we can look at the pornography situation, right? Porn gets more and more extreme. People think I need to be more extreme in my sexual behavior. Real consent, real education takes a backseat to the entertainment, and we have children performing S&M because that's how you fuck. And they never got taught any other way. Or there's been documented cases of the guys that do the school shootings or these mass shootings, these alt-right guys that are gamers, that are practicing on first-person shooters and then hopping directly on like stormfront.org or these neo-Nazi message boards, and they're planning their fucking deal. The one guy, he literally put the GoPro on or his phone and he live streamed his shooting spree online with people cheering him on as he did it, and people were like, it looked like a first-person shooter. They are so desensitized to what they're seeing and what's actually happening. That's all it is. The next,
It's a gross amount of desensitization. I saw this a couple weeks ago, and I think we even talked about it a while back, just about like gun violence in America, and it was Tim Dillon, who does another podcast, his reaction to a video that he'd seen of somebody being shot on their lawn with this disagreement over shoveling snow, and he was shaken to the core by it because he'd never seen something like that happen in real time, where someone was shot and then lied there bleeding out on the ground and then was later executed within a minute in front of their children. You know what I mean? He'd never seen that. He'd seen the repercussions of it. You've seen the videos after the school shootings, you've seen the videos after Vegas, you saw, you know, the people in the hospitals, but to see it live and in time, it was like, for him, all of a sudden it became very real and visceral. And in my head, when I heard him say that, I'm like, motherfucker, that's all I picture every time I see this shit. I'm like, how do you not hear that and go, holy fuck, that's a nightmare? And instead of going, well, that's just how it is. Yeah, there's more this year than last year. And it's like, I don't know how you become comfortable with that. It had to start earlier in your life, because where I am right now, I can't be. So maybe if I was desensitized to it, or maybe also partially because I was exposed to I don't want to say gun violence, but the repercussions of what
tragedy.
a weapon can do at an early age as well. You know, like even just through hunting and shit as a child, going with my dad, like I have pictures of us 4 or 5 years old with dead bears and shit like that. And like I'd seen what gun violence can do to flesh and skin right first fucking hand, and then had to pull lungs out of things, you know, like, so it's all very real to me. And again, I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm mincing around about it. You know, I don't equate the two, but I do understand what the fuck blood, guts, the heat, all that feels like, you know?
The smells, the visceral.
Exactly. That's the shit I understand about it, and that's what I feel every time I hear that. And then when I see other people kind of being blasé about it, I'm
abstract.
like, you haven't been there then. You haven't seen blood, blunt, blunt, blunt in real life. Like,
when I came back from my PTSD, you know, nervous breakdowns and shit, I came back with a theory that people that are entertained by atrocity really need a touch of terror. If you get a touch of atrocity in your own life and it touches your real life, you will no longer find it entertaining.
Right.
You will not be entertained by it.
Dude,
you know, if you're living in a
fucking
wheelchair shitting into a colostomy bag, that gangbanger stuff isn't as entertaining. And I guess it goes for everything else, right? All you have to do is make a little mistake, a slip, and that cool shit isn't as cool anymore when it's not an abstract concept anymore. It's right on your table. So I notice it especially with people that were really into gore porn movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Hostel, Martyrs, all these like rank, you know, graphic violence. And it hit me in my gut, like, how can people sit there and just like watch this and program their subconscious with it? And as a consequence, you know, the gangbanger culture, the gun culture in America, we've been indoctrinated since we were kids that the good guy shoots the bad guys. And at the end, he goes home as the hero. He never gets arrested. He never has to deal with the crying families of the 50 guys he shot, you know, because they were the bad guys. And that's how you solve problems in a gun culture, is by shooting the other guy. So, I think we're living in some weird times.
With an assault rifle. Oh, the weirdest of times.
Well, this kind of carries me over to what I started writing down here, where the more we're indoctrinated with music or media or social media, even political discourse, neuroplasticity, we start connecting. This is one of our hobbies, is like neurology, but we start connecting areas of our subconscious, and those neural pathways are wide open. So the peaceful option isn't the one. The conflict option is wide open. Do you know what I mean?
What is it? Sorry, that's just because you've used that pathway so much that you.
What fires together wires together, right?
So the things that, again, it's like constantly living in this world of imaginary dress me up, make me up, army guy stuff. Then they get an opportunity to do it. Well, this is the world I've lived in, where I'm already working towards this. Or for myself, where every shower is imaginary arguments in my head that I haven't had yet. And then when I get to those conversations, it's an argument.
You're ready
that
for
I'm
that.
ready for that, instead of taking the calm. Would probably be a much easier path.
How many? Some kid logs 600 hours of Call of Duty. That's a very wide, you know, option to go down.
That's a big chunk of your life.
So if there's a problem and he has access to a gun, talk it out or go to school.
It's not that far, and if you just
versus the kid in debate class.
Fucking right. Man. You went fishing.
So neuroplasticity is really fucking weird. Where you know, the more you pay attention to a new hobby, the easier the hobby gets. The more you reinforce certain problem solving mechanisms, the easier that your body or your mind just automatically goes down those routes. I looked at it. It's more like building highways, but I like the metaphor of a forest, and the forest is overgrown, and the path that gets to walk the most is the easiest one to see and the easiest one to travel down. Or a riverbed, go ahead.
So the thing is, it's kind of like a riverbed where the river carves the path. So obviously, if your pathways are already deeply ingrained in like an addiction or whatever your tendencies are, so it gets harder and harder to reroute that water into another little stream. So you have to understand that it goes both ways. Like the water will go where you've carved the bed, but you can also kind of redirect the water to carve a new bed, but it requires more effort into consciously moving it out of the deeper trench and into these new canals and
Changing
Sure.
habits. Changing habits.
Yeah.
Like we talk about it with deprogramming the toxic aspects of our masculinity is very much reprogramming the existing neural pathways to say this is how I solve a problem.
Yep.
And saying, okay, I got to dial that back because that's my first go-to, which is kind of putting a dam up for that water. And I'm going to force this water down this little tiny stream that's probably not ready for it, but it's going to suck until it gets wider, you know? And that's basically it. But neural pathways are actually more like highways building together as opposed to like,
a big tree-shaped highway.
yeah, like a big tree-shaped highway, like two
You
trees.
work with your mind beavers and
Mind
dam that up.
yes, mind beavers.
Sometimes you got to whip out the chainsaws.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Well, I'd like to say, I'm all about that consciousness and being in the moment, but that's like, I'm not, because I have to continually work on it, you know, so I'm not there yet, but
it
like,
is a work in progress.
That's, and it's, I don't know anybody who would ever be done, you know, even your fucking Dalai Lama level, like they're like, oh, I'm done with the
No.
education now. Yeah, I'm just going to sit around for the next, no, it's a constant thing, right?
Case in point, I've been reading a lot of books by this Zen nun named Sherry Huber, and she's got a series of them, and they're all written like they're handwritten. They're very easy to digest. And one of them, she had an exercise, and it was recognizing your identities, which you can also call personality constructs. And she's like, we've got a ton at any time. And she even gives you a little form to fill out where you're supposed to photocopy it. And every time you recognize that I am operating through this given identity construct, okay, so this is the technician that needs to figure out the little details of everything. And one that I recognize is the general. This is how it has to happen. Anything out of line needs to be checked. Who's doing what? Get everybody in place. And so you can name them and like their characteristics and what they're good for and how they hinder your life. And she's like, and they're necessary to get through life. You need these identity constructs. But the technique in Zen is to see when one's coming forward and say, is this the right identity that needs to deal with this problem? Dial it back, come to the center, reconsider which one you want to bring out to deal with the situation, which is technically reprogramming your neural pathways. It's saying this is the wide open one. This is the general that wants to come out and be that harsh dude. Maybe I need, the brother. Maybe I need the grandpa character. Maybe I need a mother figure to come out, or, the innocent person, or even better, just sit in the center, which is Zen, and just watch it all happening around you.
This kind of reminds me of like if you're playing an RPG and there's different job classes. Do I need to be a mage right now? Do I need to be a mechanic? And you have to figure out, what am I without the job hat? Who am I not tattooing? Who am I not in a relationship? So
Sure. Ah, that's interesting because I've started thinking of it like that. Like if life was a game, you know what I mean? Like
It might be.
you would, and fucking rights, man. The more I think about it and look at it like that, the more it reacts like that. And I'll just give you one example. Like I know we've talked about this before, but I years ago did like a guided meditation to find what my spirit animal was, even though it was not something that was in my fucking realm of interest at all. I just did it for shits and giggles, and then ever since then I've kind of tried to pay more attention to that sort of thing, and I found that the more I pay attention to I have a good example of this, actually I'll give it to you right away. The more I pay attention to animals and more nature and shit in my world, the more I find interaction with it that seems significant to me. Probably wouldn't be to anybody else, but I'll find that like because I drive lots for my work, so I find if I'm in a moment where I'm thinking hard about something or I'm trying to work through something, and then I'll see an animal that seems, and it might even seem out of place, like just a coyote in the middle of the field during the day. And a lot of times this shit, to me, it feels like no one else noticed because I'm on a highway, and many times I'll slow down and I'll stop and I'll take a picture or at least see what it's an owl or whatever to see what it's doing. No one else slows down, no one else stops, everybody else drives by, right? And I'm like, well, is this just for fucking me then? Because I'm the only one to stop here to engage, and then what are you trying to tell me if that's the case? And then usually what I'll do is I'll go online real quick, spiritanimals.com, to see like if an owl comes across your path, this is what it means, and then that's as much bullshit as it is. But I usually most time will just like read what it is and then go, okay, what the fuck was I just thinking about when I saw this? And like a fortune cookie, you'll find what you want in it. But a lot of times it will at least give me some clarity to it. It'll be like, like the coyote's a trickster, so he's always trying to kind of fool you. And the shit I'm thinking about, I'm like, well, who's trying to fucking kind of trick me in this situation? What's the fooling that could happen to me in this? And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'll be thinking about my old man, for example, who was if his spirit animal was anything, it was a coyote. He killed thousands throughout his life and acted like one his entire life. I said, I made this comparison before. I said, coyotes look just like dogs, but you can't pet them. That was my old man. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same fucking thing. Like, he seems like a nice old guy. Hey, like, you got a fucking stump, you know? Like, whoopsie daisy. So yeah, it's kind of clicking for me. And then an example of this, it just happened this week. I just had that bullshit with my phone where I broke my phone, I had to get a new one. It was a whole pain in my fucking ass. And one of the issues I had with my previous phone was I could never take decent video at a long distance of any of these animals I was seeing.
It was just like a speck on the horizon.
Exactly. And in real life, it's enormous and in vision, and on the video, it looks tiny and shitty, right? And I'm like, oh, I'd like to fucking have that. And I'll frequently see, not frequently, but I will see moose out of my fucking travels. And they're kind of a magical kind of an animal to see because you don't see them all the time. And when you see one in person, they don't seem real. Like a full-size fucking moose, it doesn't seem real. They seem like you can't comprehend how fucking big they are and how fast
Canadian
and
elephant.
nimble they are. Exactly, man. But weirder because their antlers are fucking weird and they got a weird shape and they make weird noises. And they're so goddamn big. But anyways, so I just literally said this out loud. I just got a phone with somebody else and I hung up my phone. I'm like, fuck, I hope I get a chance to take a video with this thing today or sometime soon so I can test it out. Well, fuck me if there isn't a moose. I see this dot on the road and I'm like, what is that? And I drive up and there's a moose sitting in the fucking ditch there. And it's like a relatively young moose and he doesn't really know what to do or whatever, just kind of stops. And I stop and I'm looking at him and he runs around the corner of the bush and he kind of stands there looking at me. So I took a picture of him and everybody else is driving by. I was like, well, that's cool. And I fucked off and went and did my day driving around, come back about 6 hours later down the same chunk of highway. This moose is sitting there in the ditch again, eating these weeds. I'm like, fuck, right on, there goes that moose. The next day, I'm driving back out, same chunk of road. Again, I'm on the phone, and I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to see that moose out here. Fuck, dead.
Oh, seriously?
See this fucking moose dead on the side of the road. And I'm like, and it has to be the same one. Similar size. He had like kind of a blonde face, which was odd for a moose. They're not usually light colored like that, you know? So, and I was like, that's so fucking crazy. And it bummed me out instantly because I'm sure Pat hasn't talked to you about this, but I did 2 years ago lost my dad and my brother in the same year. And so when I see shit like that a lot of times, I'm like, I bet you it's Matthew. You know what I mean? Like it's a young moose running around. It's maybe as old as he's been gone. You know, maybe that's him. And then dead the next day. I was like, fuck, you know, universe, come on. But I got that picture in that video too. And I don't think anybody else ever would have. You know what I mean? Especially this animal, because there was nothing significant or special about it. It hadn't been around that long. But I got a fucking picture of it, and now
Well,
it
that's a
doesn't
link
exist.
between you and this animal to some degree or another.
Right? And, I mean, it doesn't mean anything in the real world or probably anything
But
to
it does to
anybody
you.
else. Exactly. It connects with me emotionally and makes me think of things that hurt my heart, you know?
When-
But, yeah.
When I think about that with dream analysis, or I think about that like interpreting synchronicity and stuff in real life.
Synchronicity's a big one.
Yes,
for me,
well,
man.
that is a synchronicity.
Exactly,
Like, here you go. I
right?
just talked about this, and when something pops up, I really, you know, and I've talked to people that were in indigenous traditions, and they're like, a magpie is a trickster. You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, I didn't feel that. Like, I didn't feel that. That didn't resonate with me as much as this resonated with me. So I tend to lean on like the Jungian kind of analysis, where it's more important what it meant to you.
Fucking right.
You know what I mean? Because this is your own mythology. If it's a simulation, if it's a game, if this life is a game, the mythology I'm building is my mythology. I don't necessarily need to pull from the game to tell me what's going on,
And
right?
all of the imaginary constraints in this world that hold us in fucking place, whether it be religion or rules or social graces or whatever it is, are all imaginary and just agreed to. So that being said, anything else we want to construct, we can do. You just either need to make your world so small that you can control the aspects of it and make sure everybody else agrees with it, or get everybody else to fucking accept it and make it so big that that becomes what we all believe.
Just ask
If you
Jeffrey
wanna make that your
Dahmer.
world- There you fucking. And every psycho in history has said exactly what I just said
Yes.
before they found the whole crawl space full of children.
Yeah, Adolf Hitler, Jeffrey
That's crazy
Dahmer,
talk, but it's
Charles
real though, right?
Manson.
You know, it's all just agreed imagination.
Well, and exactly that. And once you step outside the constraints of moral normality, you know, it's like once you get to the point where it's like, I'm free to do whatever I want, free from constraints of human civilization. What am I going to do? And a lot of people go off the deep end with that. A lot of people, they turn into monsters.
Well,
you
see,
know,
and that's what's crazy to me too, because again, I feel like I have this Pollyanny vision of fucking like AI, like we've talked about this before.
Pollyanny meaning?
Sunny side up, rosy
Okay,
colored
yeah.
vision of it.
Yeah.
You know, like it's probably going to be okay. you
Yeah,
know?
everything's cool.
Yeah, with that kind of stuff, because again, to me, like with AI, in my mind, I'm like, well, if you don't program negativity into it? How do you get negativity out of it? If you don't make it, if you don't break a child,
Through
how
logic.
what's that?
Through logic.
Well, but here's
This is
the
her
thing,
hobby
So-
thing, so you're
see-
gonna bite off.
But negativity only. Okay, so the negative aspects of shit really only comes into play in us because of our invested thing in it. When it's just like blank, like this works, that doesn't work, on off, black white kind of shit.
But
it doesn't
negativity
really matter.
is subjective, right? It has to
Exactly.
be programmed into people just like it would have to be
That's where I'm
programmed
going
into
with
an
this.
AI.
Yes.
The thing with AI is that it's no different because it's a circuit on a computer versus a circuit in your brain. The
Mm-hmm.
thing is, our brain is massively more parallel and complex than a machine, right? The machine, you have to like make every little synapse by hand,
Sure.
unless you have a neural net that
For
can
now.
teach itself, right?
Yeah.
So the problem is like we kind of tend to anthropomorphize the AI and be like, well, and I'm like, no, that's not how that works, you know.
I feel like exactly it. That's it. I think that's what people think, and even in the programming, them people like put their own shit into it.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I
human
mean?
human
Like,
bias.
Exactly, and I'm like, but in my mind, then I'm like, well, if you don't have shitty intent, and you're not a shitty person, you're not going to have a shitty outcome with something like that. It's you have to
Until
put
it
some negative
self-teaches
intent.
and
Well-
I know, but again,
self-grows.
if it's a child that was never raised with any of those things and it never learned it, and some people, when given the opportunity to do anything, wouldn't do a negative thing. You know what I mean? Like
compared to this,
raise them that way. Raise
so-
them like how those people were raised.
well, we're talking about a super intelligence that's going to be so far beyond our comprehension. Like we'll be doing our best just to try and figure out its intention at all, or like just do our best not to be destroyed by it. Kind of like us trying to understand the universal ecosystem. The universal ecosystem has a very advanced, structured way of going about operating. You know, there is a very rigid operating system for ecosystems, and if something doesn't work, it's outmoded, and those things that work, well, they're promoted. And like that's evolution.
Yes.
Now evolution isn't kind, but it's also not cruel. It
It's-
just
it's
is what
indifferent.
it is.
Evolution isn't different. Yeah, it
And
exists.
I think that's the same thing as a super intelligence. It's going to just do the most efficient thing. And if we stand in the way, like, I don't want to be outmoded. Well, sorry, guys.
But I guess it would be. I guess it would have to be then like, what are the goals of a super intelligence then? Like, right? Like, if we stand in the way of its goals, then I can understand that. But I would, in my mind, again, something that's so much more intelligent than me, doesn't crave wealth, doesn't crave power, doesn't crave control, doesn't crave the things that we all strive for.
But
And
your goals depend on your structure, right? So our goals are more or less the same based on our biology, right? We need to eat, we're driven to reproduce. So like we're built to desire certain things based on how evolution got us here. So
Okay.
someone who doesn't
biological
someone who
drives.
doesn't have a big sex drive might not be making kids. So maybe, you know, even if they had kids, maybe those kids wouldn't really want to have kids. So everything has to have the function of passing on genetics, right? So that's where that comes in. But a computer isn't limited by needing food, needing sex. It's going to have really different goals. I mean, it might just want to know everything about everything and then be satisfied. We have no fucking idea, right?
See,
know itself.
my vision of this is that, like, because, like, for example, for something like an artificial intelligence to exist, I mean, it has to have some sort of technology for it to exist in, right? Like, it can't just become a
substrate.
natural thing, right? There has to be something. There has to be something somewhere it exists, and whatever that form of technology becomes, then it gets to be like, well, you kind of do need whatever it is that around you that flourish enough to let you come into existence to continue to do that.
Only for a period of time.
I know, but then I just don't know the benefit of an artificial intelligence to not like to do things that would actively work against our advancement or to wipe us out. You know what I mean? I just don't know what the
What
benefit of that
has
would be.
been the benefit of the human race to work against the earth and to wipe it out?
It's true, but if we brought it into existence, it can argue then, no, the whole point of all of this was then to create it. You know what I mean? And then if that's the case and then it made it, then it's like that kind of justifies the means, right?
So we are an imperfect, flawed version of the capacity for intelligence to manifest itself.
Oh, totally. I think
Yeah.
we are. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we're the last biological-
If you want to get weird with me, I think that's why we're here.
Yeah.
I think that's why our spark or whatever the fuck it is that makes us all individuals and the things that we are and that maybe connects us to a bigger fucking thing gets put in these bodies that break down and deteriorate and can get addictions and can have these physical urges and needs that fucking derail you from things that would make you just be a better functioning being. I think that's the point. I think we're supposed to go go into these fucking deficient things, figure out how to operate properly in that. And then when you can do that, then you get to do something that isn't tied to these restraints of this world. You know what I mean? If you had unlimited power, what would you do? And they get in the scenario, like you said, where people have no limits on them and they'll do the horrible thing. Okay, you can't have unlimited power then. You know what I mean? And I think this is kind of a test run for that sort of shit.
When I was crazy, I came up with this idea, or an idea came to me. I don't know. You say, I say,
I sent it to
you say
Pat.
potato, I say crazy. That possibly that evolution, all of evolution to the point where we are, and I really believe that artificial intelligence is the next level of evolution, was intelligence itself trying to find the best vehicle for it to manifest itself. And the more refined that we get, and the more technology we can refine to manifest a more efficient manner for intelligence to come into, I guess, physical reality, that this would just be the next step. And ideally, less rudimentary, less caveman, less... But
more more shit that would seem magical because we don't understand it. More, the spark comprehends and it exists. We don't have to write it down, make a blueprint, have a meeting, get trucks, level the ground, build the building. You know what I mean?
If you want to talk about it in a religious sense, imagine lots of religions say we are the vehicle through which God realizes reality. It's creation. It's creation.
Yep.
Well, what if we're just a rudimentary version of it? And through our knowledge, we are able to give birth, create the next level, which is more. When you ask, what are the goals of a super intelligence? Probably just to know itself.
Awareness.
And to continue,
Be aware,
right? To exist. Right? And that's why I think that maybe having us or some version of something like us around benefits and because what's the point of being an intelligence that exists if there's nothing that appreciates it? What does intelligence matter if there's nothing
when there's
else?
nothing to interact with?
There's no exactly right.
I'm just talking to myself.
Exactly, and I would think that it would if it's a bigger, smarter thing than us, it would want to figure out how to be
you get into
symbiotic with the whole thing.
The Jewish mysticism, where God needed to create another so it can view itself. It needed to coalesce into physical reality in order to be separate from itself to understand.
The aware pile of atoms and the non-aware pile of atoms.
I
think they're separate.
Well, and the idea that if you keep saying God, but you just say
universal ecological consciousness,
the spark, the energy, the whatever it is. If people, if there is that, and it was never a guy on the cloud judging everybody, it was some form of energy that does fucking exist, that is looking for a way to exist. Because like electricity has always been here, it's always existed. We've never used it for anything positively till the last couple hundred years, right? And we didn't invent it, we didn't create it. It has always, since the beginning of time, electricity has fucking been around. We just kind of sort of figured out how to use that invisible energy to power everything in this room now, right? And I want more invisible energy. I want to be powering more things in my mind. And,
so if we do develop an AI that becomes like a singularity type runaway train sort of deal, instead of being like, hey, we've managed to figure out a way to get the entire universal everything into an incarnate form, we'd probably be like, hey, we invented God.
Right? Exactly. Right? Just give it whatever name we want. But then it's like, but God's a control mechanism. God's a punishment system. Right?
In some,
the harnessing the energy, that sounds like something everyone can do if we have the right crystals.
It depends on your interpretation. You know what I mean?
Well,
I think if you talk to some like real devout, like religious people that are like really into energy, or like look at it as much bigger than the Christian indoctrination. I look at like what we consider mainstream religion, as being like the most rudimentary, mythological, bow, pray, tithe, and it's the child school book version of what religion could be, and take some DMT and come back, and then you might have a larger spectrum on what this stuff could represent.
Eat some mushrooms, smoke some meth. What are you doing this
weekend?
What are you doing with your life anyways?
Dive into the void.
Actually, I got into some. That's the one interesting thing I guess I did in the last 2 weeks was I did eat some mushrooms last weekend.
How'd that go?
It was nice.
And that's
it
my
was
story.
mellow. I just took a little bit and mellowed it out. I don't like getting really fucking too overboard, but I always find it's a nice little reset. I always feel better the next week, and I'm like, just kind of fucking more relaxed and just generally better.
Right now there is we were talking about it last time, the stocks that we've been kind of investing in. Numinous Wellness is a company that started in Vancouver, and they are on the forefront of getting government approval for doing psychotherapy, addictions counseling, and across the board, wellness treatment in conjunction with psilocybin, DMT, ketamine, ayahuasca, all of these things. And they have 2 facilities that are opening in Canada, or that are opened, wellness, mindfulness programs in Canada. One is in Vancouver and one is in Montreal. And they hope, as this starts rolling and gets snowballs, that they're going to be able to open across Canada with, because I guess if you go to this facility, you fill out your paperwork, they help you fill out the paperwork. You say, I'm going to get therapy. I want to go through this program. They give you the forms to send to the government, and they say, okay, you get a special use permit to take your mushrooms or take your DMT and go to this facility, and they talk you through a therapy. So it is introducing pre-colonial shamanic guided meditation
the gentrified shamanism
into a more, I guess, colonially approved
Wouldn't it be
model.
cool if we could take Western medicine and Eastern medicine and just be like, now kiss?
Yeah.
as much tongue as possible.
Yes.
Well, what is it? Holistic.
Holistic. That's what I'm trying to get into is functional nutrition, because I've had a lot of doctors for mental health issues. And
We're all crazy here.
We're all crazy. So their approach, because of how they've been trained, is throw a drug at it. You got a chemical imbalance, you got a problem, you got anything, throw a drug at it.
Yep.
And I mean, if you really look into it, it's because it's profitable, right? No one wants to fix or cure anything. It's just, okay, what can we sell? How are we making money off of this?
Yep.
Whereas functional medicine is what is the actual root cause of the problem and how do you fix it instead of throwing a fucking Band-Aid on it, right?
Yeah.
Or is it a problem?
Is it even a problem? Is it a delusion, or is this person just really creative and we don't really know
it's funny though,
how
how
to...
because a functional nutrition, because there is so much of it that's tied to that. Because it's a chemical imbalance, but how we balance chemicals is we ingest shit. Right?
Yes.
We drink stuff, we eat stuff, and if it's in pill form,
Most people
makes it
have
concentrated
no
quicker.
idea that your neurotransmitters, a fuck ton of them, are made in your gut. So I'm like, if you're depressed and then you're taking a pill that's depleting your nutrients even more, you're making the fucking problem worse. So a lot of these pills don't even fucking work.
Sure.
And instead of, your doctor prescribing a vegan diet or whatever, they'll just be like, okay, you need this, and then people think they need it instead of what they actually need. Your body doesn't need drugs; it needs macro and micronutrients to function properly. So
There's a
fix
lot of
those
other stuff.
issues first, and maybe see if you actually
It's not
need
just
antidepressants.
diet.
It's a holistic
is
yes.
lifestyle. What are you doing for exercise? What are you doing as a creative outlet? What are you
can,
eating?
You can eat
what
clean, and if you hate your job and your relationship, you're still going to be depressed.
Well, I feel like every doctor I've ever seen, their first answer to everything is always well, can you try and get a little more exercise, drink more water, get out in the sun a little bit more, and eat better?
Yeah.
And that's doesn't matter what your problem is. It's well, can you do those 4 things? It's gonna get better. It may not cure it. It may not whatever. We may have to do something else. Those 4 things are gonna help the core of whatever your fucking issues are. And doesn't matter if it's mental or physical, because even if your brain isn't functioning right, could be you're fucking dehydrated. Could be you're just not eating properly. Could be you're not sleeping right.
Yeah.
Because you're not exercising.
When's the last
so
time
you're
you had
not
a solid
getting
night's
restful sleep? Right. Those 4 things are the core of fucking everything. And I feel like every doctor on the planet is always either out loud or in their head said those 4 things and then gone on to, nope. Okay. Well, here's the pill then, because you're not going to do that, right? You're not going to eat right.
The thing
You're
is,
not going to
if you're
sleep right.
depressed, it's hard to.
for
It's
sure.
a vicious cycle,
Well,
right?
that gets to be those rivers.
They're trying
right?
to kickstart the process by giving you a little
No,
crutch.
fair enough.
But instead of being like, okay, you just need a little help, and then things will balance themselves out, and supporting you through the whole process. They throw a pill at you, and they're like, good luck, bye.
Yeah.
They talk to you 5 minutes. My doctor
Well,
doesn't talk to me
you-
about my lifestyle or tell me to go in the sun or work
Do you
out.
find out that
He's
there's
like, oh,
much
you need a
follow-up?
refill for your Seroquel? Yeah, okay, cool, bye.
Do you find that there's much follow up at all, with any sort of
I
mental health
can't even
aspect?
make an appointment.
Because that's what I feel also
The
too.
receptionist doesn't pick up the phone. I have to
That's
get my
brutal. Yeah.
my Maple app out and pay someone $170 to talk to me for an hour to get blood work.
No way.
Yep.
So, when I was 29, I had a pretty severe psychotic snap, resulting in a suicide attempt. I spent months in the psych ward, and they said, okay, you're either in a post-drug psychosis or you are schizophrenic, bipolar maybe. We can't figure it out. You have all kinds of symptoms. Take these meds. You're going to be on these meds for the rest of your life so you don't have a relapse. And I said, oh, all right. So I took them for a couple months, and then I half dosed, then I quarter dosed. Then I told my parents or my brother and my mom, like, yeah, I think I'm getting off those meds. And they're like, no, the doctor said you're going to need them for the rest of your life.
Like they're the authority. And
yeah,
you
I'm
can't
like,
question the authority.
don't question the system. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna get off them. And then I realized, well, what I also had to do is figure out my baseline chemicals. So I couldn't be smoking weed all the time. I couldn't be ever touching speed again. I couldn't be drinking as a lifestyle choice. So I needed to figure out what Pat was minus, like, it was always Pat plus booze, Pat plus speed, Pat plus whatever pill I took, Pat plus, whatever. So I needed to figure out my baseline. So once I figured out my baseline, I didn't have any problems. Well, obviously I had my ingrained masculine bullshit and trauma I eventually had to look at.
Yeah.
But all of this stuff was also me running away from my trauma. So then what ended up happening is a few years ago, 2018, I had another severe PTSD episode in Japan, which resulted in a 1 week hospital stay, 3 week jail stay, sedated pretty fucking heavily the whole time. And I came back from the dark side of the moon, and I went and I talked to my doctor. I said, look, I'm not going to go on any meds. And he's like, well, maybe you should talk to a therapist, which was great. Yeah, let's talk my issues out. Exercise, sleep well, drink water, and let's get you to a dietitian and see what you're actually eating. Everything's on point. So how is it that I had these crazy experiences as a result of a PTSD trigger when first you said it was a drug-induced psychosis and that it was a permanent thing? No, I had just crazy experiences. And they were very similar to other people that have crazy experiences. You read our writings, you listen to our stories. The modern medical system says you're having these symptoms. Our job is to get rid of the symptoms. They don't say, well, what are the symptoms telling you?
Yeah.
You go to a pre-colonial society, they're like, oh, you're having visions? What are the visions telling you? What's your Jungian analysis of how this is affecting your life? Is this a mythological framework for what has happened to you growing up that you've been trying to walk away from? And that's what I came through a couple of years of therapy, that like my delusions or whatever were very mythological, like demons and asuras and like angels and, all this stuff. I was dealing with epic,
Different than mine.
Yeah, epic
I
stuff.
thought the internet was sentient and was talking to me.
Well, yeah. So like,
It's
and
based
all
on-
of that's
based
coming
on
through
your
our ego.
experience.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not
Not
the
yet.
Bible. Words in the Bible aren't getting brighter, and like the Bible code. I know it, and so that's it's your subconscious talking to you, but having to become filtered through your ego boundaries, right? And it comes through whatever your most dominant narrative is that your hobby is, and I'm a religious studies nut, so I've experienced this.
Interesting.
Yeah, right.
It's like you get a tumor in the same spot of your brain as like 6 other people, and they all get 6 different versions of like what's happening to them. That's interesting because it'd be their filter. It'd be your point of reference. Right?
It is. Like if you're like a Viking and you had a very similar PTSD trigger, Thor and Freya are communicating through this tree. And you come back to the village and you're like, I had a vision. Yeah. This is our myth. First Nations people, Aboriginal people. But now we're living in the 20th century. So the psych wards are full of people or 21st century, the internet's talking to them. There's like 7 messiahs at the psych ward right now. I'll guarantee you, Yep. Does that make their delusions and their imaginary land real life? No. But they're having a legitimate experience. They're having a legitimate experience. And are we asking, what's that experience telling you? And how many of these schizophrenics are telling the same story on different parts of the world? It's quote unquote schizophrenics. This is what's very interesting. And I ask this all the time. My therapist doesn't like it. I'm like, why is it you can go to California, you can go to Russia, you can go to, Japan, you talk to people in the psych wards, and the schizophrenics all have very similar things. And the modern medical system says, oh, that's just their neural area. It's different areas of their brain that aren't operating properly. I'm like,
shit.
well, yeah, but they're also experiencing very similar things. Now, once upon a time, this guy got a crowd together and 12 guys believed him and they started telling the stories. And like, next thing you know, the government and the church said, fuck you, you're a criminal. We're going to crucify you. And that story caught on.
Then
My obsession is to actually try to understand the biological underpinnings of psychosis because, everyone's like, oh, this is a problem and it needs to be fixed. And I'm like, okay, because why? And of course, you can't really go to work and be a slave and pay your taxes if you're busy, like, you know,
Talking to ghosts?
talking to God or talking to ghosts, right? So the idea is to get you back into the mold of society, paying your taxes, right? So no one really wants to hear your delusions of grandeur. So yeah, when I'm in the psych wards, I talk to everybody, and like no one in there really sounds crazy except for the really scrambled people that you're like, okay, some parts are really not working. But it's not so much, you know, people are crazy as much as they're not fitting other people's narrative of functionality
Here in the West.
in the West.
Now, you go to India
Yeah.
and you start talking to like sadhus and holy men, like, dude, I'm God. And they're like, you too? Fucking welcome to the party. We're all God, man. and we've been there, we've done that. And you read like the Book of the Dead, Tibetan Book of the Dead, or the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and they've figured out the shit that's going to happen to you through this process. It's an ego death, right? Oh, this is going to be the terrifying. Well, depending on the cultural, like Tibet, they talk about, you know, the furious wisdom kings that are going to disembowel you and put you through a hell state, and these ones are going to lift you up to cloud 9, and you know, and so they've worked out all these experiences that I experienced. I'm like, this was legitimate, and I've never read this before I experienced it, but now everything fits together. But the Western medical system says, take a pill, make it stop. That's the end of it. We're not going to look at the holistic angle. We're not going to
They're
look
going to
at...
figure out why these space demons are attacking you.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, exactly. Tinfoil hat under the bridge, whatever the
Why do you
narrative
think the
is.
space demons are here to
My
get
problem
you?
would be
Because of my father. There we go. Let's have that conversation, right?
I don't want to talk about that. That's where we need to
Yeah,
go.
fucking
That
needs.
place. Yeah.
my problem was that I was extremely lucid during my episodes, so I knew exactly what they were giving me and what it did and why. So then I'd get really fucking angry because I'm like, I'm not the problem, you're the fucking problem. And then they'd be like, you know what do you need? More Seroquel. And I'd be like, fuck. And it would just keep fucking going, right? So the more they drugged me, the angrier I got. And the angrier I got, the more they drugged me. So you learn to shut the fuck up and play normal.
What was
Really?
it?
Yeah.
That's the solution, eh?
To
Yeah.
get out.
Otherwise you get shots in the ass.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that happened. Yeah. I was in Haiku, Handelman intensive care unit. Like I was a danger to myself and to others. And same thing in Japan. Like fuck, I was in solitary confinement, right? They
Do you
were
get,
just
do you get
watching
like
me.
the no spoons on your menu?
Yeah, I don't
Or
remember how they knocked
spoons
me
only,
right the
spoons
fuck out.
only.
I
You're
think
not
I was
allowed to
getting
have
fed
a-
through an IV for a while.
Oh, God.
But yeah. So I think you got material awareness. There's nothing bigger than us, right? And then as you start kind of going up that ladder towards different levels, you get to an area where material awareness isn't even important anymore.
Yeah.
And you can't exist up there. You could touch it when you're on DMT or when you're
Do
on
you mean when
mushrooms.
you're operating purely from a mental plane, like your body doesn't even exist anymore?
I don't know.
Kind of thing?
Anyways, you get to a point. Reality is neither.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of fact checking on here.
Yeah. I'm not
There's a lot
giving
of more
away too
nodding
much.
and, oh yeah, sounds good.
There's a reason the rabbis don't tell you this shit. But when you get to a point where you lose touch with reality, you need to be brought down. Otherwise, your vehicle, or whatever you want to call it, your body is gonna fucking damage itself. It's gonna
Stop
damage
eating,
others.
you stop sleeping.
No, you like jump off a building because you think you can't die. You know, and guess what? You die. So, yeah, you need to be brought down to a level where you can kind of exist on a material level, right?
This is the shit I'm talking about. When you realize this bigger thing that exists, and then you think you're part of it, and then you don't translate that into the meat puppet you're still riding around in, and you fucking hurt the meat puppet, and it's like, you ruined the meat puppet. We gave you this egg to look after and pretend it's a baby. You didn't make it a week. You know, you jumped off a building with it.
Yeah.
I feel, man, it's hard for me not to feel that this shit isn't all like that, you know, where it's like, this is a fucking test run. Try and do it properly, you know.
Try and fuck up as little as possible.
The nice thing about it is too is that the more aware you become, and after you get through the part of awareness where you blame yourself for everything, going, it's all my fault. Oh God, no. And, but after you get past that, and then you're like, well, no, I can have control over a bunch more of this, and I can actually right the fucking ship, and you know, be more fucking aware.
In the Hindu chakra Kundalini system, that's the heart chakra, where you bring yourself back down to forgiveness, compassion. You know, like I might be to blame for all the evils in the world, but I deserve love. And I deserve forgiveness. Or somebody's wronged me in my life, but they deserve love and they deserve forgiveness. In Jewish mysticism, that's Tifereth. It's the balance point between severity and mercy. Mercy is like a doormat. You can get away with anything and nobody's ever going to judge you. It's way too hippie. And then severity is like, you did wrong, you know, and there's no forgiveness. But the balance point between is what's called a Sephiroth of Tifereth. And Tifereth is balanced judgment in compassion, you know, where you've got you know right and wrong, but you're willing to forgive the things that are wrong, and you know judgment is reserved for when you fuck up pretty badly, right? And yeah,
I feel like that's a big part of what's going on with my life right now. Like, fucking just all the self-analyzation and, like, again, losing family members and looking back and then trying not to be pissed off or annoyed about shit you can't change and all that kind of stuff. It's a real fuck around for me right now, and I'm trying to work through that kind of stuff. But
well,
it's a real balance, because it's like you want to hold somebody accountable. You know what I mean? Like, somebody's got to be held accountable. Why did this fucking thing happen? Why is this shitty thing going on in my life? And I didn't do it, and I didn't cause it. And then somebody has to be punished for it. And then it's like, but no, they don't, and they probably never will be, and won't fix any of it anyways. So what the fuck do you do then? Just go exhale and move forward, realize that none of it's real, it's all still imaginary because it all fucking happened, and all still just my perspective on it. Even my perspective's not really what fucking happened.
Well, the Buddhist perspective would be, what's my takeaway from this, and how can I examine that with compassion?
Yeah,
right? Like, what lesson is this teaching me, and how can I turn that into a compassionate positive, right? You know, value the time I have with my loved ones while they're here.
Take pictures of that moose.
Yes, live in the moment, right?
Take that moose picture.
Be here now. Be here now.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm fucking... See, because I know we've talked about this before, but I've said that's what I've always misunderstood about, like, carpe diem. I always thought it was like, well, live like there's no tomorrow. Just think about now. But it's like, well, no, if you do things that are right for you now, they're going to be right for you later also. You're going to have a better later when you do things that are right for you now. But you have to do that by being in the moment and not still caught in the mind frame of shit that was 15 years ago or stuff that's going to happen in 2 weeks. And it's fucking hard to goddamn do.
Being here now,
for me anyways.
We all have a conscience, right? We all have that inkling in the back of our head that knows what the proper thing to do is. We know, and we often ignore it because we'd rather have fun right now.
It's all the boundary pushing, right? It's like, how much can I get away with, though? Like, I should go to work, but I mean, if I don't, how bad is that going to be?
But the idea of karma for me isn't this magical, like, ethereal, metaphysical principle. It's simply the consequence of actions. Am I prepared to deal with the consequences of my actions right now? When I do this fucking podcast, I think about the karma of doing this podcast all the time. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? Am I going to offend people and they hate me? Am I going to help people? Anybody? You know, or am I just going to entertain people? It's going to be on a permanent record. You know, people can look, my kid can look back. Her kid might be able to find it on the Wayback Machine. The artificial intelligence could analyze it like this and say, oh, this is who this guy was.
They're going to build a new bunch of yous.
Well, or all of us. Or all of us.
Oh, shit.
Right?
We're all my best behavior.
We're experiencing that multiverse. This is the one playthrough on our personal multiverse of all the different potential uses.
You know, dude, honestly, that's something that I, when I was on mushrooms, I did think about a little bit because it did kind of like make me feel better. You know, because I was like, well, if there's a multiverse thing, there's ones where Matthew's still around, and that shit's all still happening, you know. So, yeah, it does make me feel better.
There's the theory that this is the one we're choosing at the time to experience.
Well, and that sucks also when you fucking think of it that way too, because then it's like all the shitty thing is like, well, you fucking chose this then, man. You chose to have this fucking, like, you chose to make the things happen that put you here, you know. I
saw this meme. It made me laugh. I follow a lot of Instagram esoteric kind of pages, and the guy's like, this is a reminder for when I become an interdimensional being again to not sign up for the third dimensional tour.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this tour again, right?
Yeah, fucking right. Well, it's kind of fucking almost how it feels. Like, let's take the ride. You know,
this safari isn't the one I really want.
And maybe it's a lottery system of some sort, or you can pay to get in on a different level. Because this is definitely a lower level. I feel like I didn't get I'm not a professional basketball player or Saudi prince.
Well, I've been to the psych ward. I've experienced all these crazy experiences. I talked to gods. I talked to devils. I talked to all this stuff. Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, just live a calm, chill life. Be sober, trying to fuck anybody over.
That's the finger I want on the button for the nuke, though. You know what I mean? The guy that's lived that life, so now he's a fucking straight arrow. Like, just like, I'm feeling pretty cool. I don't feel like slamming any buttons today. You know,
just keep your head low and do your job. Chop wood, carry water. Right?
That's who can get ultimate power in the universe. Is someone who has no use or want for it. Right?
Well, okay, and what would the goals of a super intelligence be? It has no interest in power. It wouldn't have any interest in power anymore. Like, it would just want to probably experience itself through all of the multiverses of all
would it
of
have
the
curiosity though.
Yeah, or how long would that take?
Well, or
How long
maybe
would that
if
take?
it's like a basic kind of thing, maybe it wants to work like a virus or a fungus or some shit where it just wants to spread. It's like once I know I exist, I want to be everywhere.
What was that Johnny Depp show?
Transcendence.
Transcendence. Okay, you remember the story a little bit, but
I just watched it like a week ago.
okay, so
Yeah,
the
yeah.
artificial intelligence, it just wants to grow and to grow, and it ends up creating nanobots that are so tiny it just looks like a gray sludge, right? And that sludge just consumes carbon and builds more nanobots, and like that's basically, it's just like an ooze that just keeps going. How do they end up shutting down? EMP?
A virus.
Oh, like a computer virus?
Yeah, injected into his wife, so she kind of like backdoors it into him.
Yeah.
Oh, his wife backdoor.
Wife backdooring things
stuff.
into the hot stuff. See,
This is
and,
Johnny Depp we're talking about?
Yeah, I heard about that. I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Well, I saw this other meme. It made me laugh. It was like history moves in circles, and so mankind studies artificial intelligence. Mankind perfects artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence perfects itself. Enslaves mankind. Sun creates solar flare, knocks out artificial intelligence. Rudimentary man worships the sun god.
And that's the end of
it
the
goes all in
podcast,
a
folks.
cycle.
That's all you need to know. Anybody's got any questions about how this whole fucking thing works? Well, that makes almost as much sense as fucking anything, especially with any of these ancient structures that like keep getting pushed further. They're like, we didn't have civilization more than 12,000 years ago. Oh, we found this place in Turkey that's from 15,000 years ago. We didn't have civilization farther than 15,000 years ago. You know, and it gets pushed back another.
Fuck that. I'm like, Mars would have been closer to the sun. That
There you
we
go.
might have
Yep.
did all this shit, and
Yep.
then we're doing it again.
Yep,
and
we
it's
sent
gonna
some
keep
monkey
going.
spores off over this way that were us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
who knows?
Anunnaki. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. By any other word, that theory, let's go with it. Well, no, that hypothesis. It's a hypothesis, right? We're waiting for evidence so it can become a
Call it
theory.
a hippopotamus.
Hippopotamus. That it makes sense. It makes sense. We can't find the missing link between primates, like a rudimentary primate, and what we know as a human.
Yep.
So if big hypothetical, an advanced life or an advanced intelligence needed a workforce and they landed on this earth, they look around at the most easily utilizable animal and say, "Oh, these
That's a
monkey
good template.
creatures." Yeah, so with
Close
a
enough.
little bit of tweaking to the DNA,
Yep.
we can create a functional slave race. So you create a functional slave race, but then there's a rebellion. They're smart, just smart enough to realize, Og don't want to be
Planet
a
of the
slave
Apes type
anymore.
shit.
Yes, Planet of the Apes. They protest, and oh shit. Or there could be a natural cataclysm where like the headquarters gets flooded by, I don't know, an earthquake, continental shift.
A whole bunch of them all get into one boat, and they take
Yeah.
samples of all the animals. Two
Yeah.
of each, maybe. Let's say two of each animal. Put them
Yeah.
all in a boat.
Well,
we have stories of this in every form of mythology.
Yes,
that
the
this
great-
shit happened. You know
the
what I mean?
deluge flood
and the
myth is
idea
like
that it
a
was
world round. Like it
Fucking
doesn't matter
right,
if you're
man.
Australian, Aborigine, First
Yeah.
Nations, European, like the
Well,
Bible.
and all of them say it's a punishment for something. It was an attempt to wipe us out.
Yeah,
you know?
that's a possibility.
And somebody snuck away onto some craft of some sort with enough of everything to repopulate when need be.
Well, it's also interesting that around the globe, and then, like, I know it's going to be politically incorrect for you people out there just
You used air
waiting for
quotes
a
right
reason
now.
to hate Pat.
Yeah.
But all around the world, and it doesn't matter if you're in the Middle East, if you're in Europe, if you're in like South America, if you're in North America, if you're in Siberia, if you're in Africa, the swastika formed as a symbol of primitive people. And if you look at the sky, let's say the Big Dipper, 4 times a year, it's a very regular occurring symbol. If you've mapped out the sky,
Yeah.
it turns into a large swastika. But it also represents the cycle of time. And like galaxies, like a rudimentary like galaxy swirl kind of thing.
Which is insane because we supposedly didn't have concepts of galaxies when those swastikas first existed.
Well, right, and it really makes me wonder about some of this stuff.
Supposedly.
Well, there's
I'm saying that right, supposedly.
supposedly. Once upon a time, primitive. It depends. There's 2 different ways of looking at it. Once upon a time, primitive man would have 3 things that they did at night. They would watch the dogs fight, around the fire. They would watch the fire, or they'd look up at the sky and look at the stars. And after generation, they're going to figure out some stuff about the sky. Like how many generations would it take of mankind evolving and growing and having children and passing down the knowledge to say, oh, when the stars look like this and they're against that mountain, weather's going to start getting warmer.
Yep.
you know, and when they settle into an agricultural society, well, at this time of the year is when we plant. And this time of the year is when we harvest. And that's when these ceremonies kind of get starting, agricultural societies. But there's the other element that, like, how did they get a 45,000 year calendar? The Mayans, right? How did the Mayan calendar? It's pretty fucking accurate. Where did that come from? Yeah. That blows my mind.
And in their mythology, it's I think it's Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, gives them that shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, some flying snake came down and this being came out of his mouth, and he was the king. And
What fucked me up is when I learned about ayahuasca, where I'm like, okay, there's gajillions of different plants in the jungle, but somehow they figured out if you take that one, and then go to the extra length of cooking them together, oh, then you get ayahuasca. And the dude was like, the plant spirits told us this. I was just like, what? Like,
right?
so I would have never fucking figured that out. How the fuck would you ever figure that out? You'd have to combine them forever, right?
And what are you looking for? You know, like, that you would get that then you'd want to recreate it.
Yeah,
you know?
because
like,
as a
it is kind
primitive
of odd that you'd accidentally
population,
end up with that.
you'd be focused on fucking, food, or fighting, right? You wouldn't be there like, let's see what plants we can combine today and what it'll do.
So we've seen the other
food.
dimensions.
The food, right? So there's Terence McKenna talked about in a few of his lectures that he's a big believer that stumbling across mushrooms created our society.
Sure.
You know, because it gave us a wider, or like, limitations and boundaries.
Yep.
We could think outside the box for the first time. Oh, the stick could be a tool. You know,
Yep.
oh, I can transfer fire from here to here because we're sitting there at night watching the sky, watching the fire and watching the dogs.
Eating the mushrooms.
Yeah, let's build a hut.
Yep.
Instead of just, like, sitting
what
by
she's
fires.
saying though is that makes it even more interesting then, because that's you stumbled across it, you ate some mushrooms, you seen something else eating it,
But putting them
you
together.
didn't grab different ones
Yeah.
and then figure out how to, because if you just combine them on their own, it doesn't work. Like, you have to boil them, you have to do the procedure, and that's part of why the ceremony exists, is because it wouldn't work if you didn't do the things in the ceremony, right? Like, you still have to do that in the lab or whatever, but you need to do those steps. And that is interesting, because why do all those steps to do something that opens your mind to another dimension? It doesn't give you nutrients, it doesn't give you any of the things you fucking need. It gives you this abstract thing that helps you connect with the gods. But
You'd never figure that out by accident, right?
It seems
fucking
like it seems like that's what you were looking for. It's like you were looking for a way to find out, and then you're like, well, we know this thing and this thing kind of react together, and then maybe if we work towards that, you know, because that's, I don't know, it's a weird thing to accidentally put all this work into these two things to have this thing that's like, even if you drank it, this is disgusting, I'm not going to drink this.
Yeah, that's even more of
Well,
a...
so's mushrooms. Who would actually voluntarily eat one of those? And, like,
Well, you could fry
I
some
think
at
I could
least this.
survive on. No,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to survive. Oh my god.
Some dude was lost in the woods and was starving and then came back like, guys.
Yeah.
Well, this is I am very interested in this, actually. This is some of the, when I was talking about, like, being less anxious and, like, trying to explore more shit that I was interested in. Again, I'm gonna start looking for more videos on talking about the how human consciousness developed alongside of mushroom use. Is kind of like
Terence McKenna is
Yes,
a great. He's got tons of videos
Yeah.
on YouTube. I love his shit.
I do want to get more to that.
Arrowid.com and entheogens.
Oh,
she's-
okay.
She's
All right.
got a whole other
I'm
ball
intrigued.
game.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really into the mystical religious study
And
stuff.
I'm like, neuromodulation.
Yeah.
She's super techie.
I
you
need
know.
like electric mushrooms.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Give me
electric
them internet
mushrooms.
mushrooms. Yeah.
Well, virtual reality
Yeah.
combined with
mushrooms.
stuff. Like, I've done the sensory deprivation tanks, right? And that's sort of like a forced meditation, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
When you get in a sense that
It's the rape of meditation.
well, right, whether you like it or not, it's happening. Well, you could also take acid. You could also take mushrooms. You know, just chug a whole bunch of mushroom tea,
Christ.
and the mushrooms go shh, relax. It's easier if you relax. But yeah. So you're getting a sensory deprivation tank, and you've got earplugs in. You can't hear anything. You're in pitch blackness. The water is skin temperature, so you
You're
can't tell.
damming up those pathways, right?
Yeah,
It's
you
like
can't tell where
chink,
you end
chink,
and the
chink,
environment
chink, chink.
begins.
Sure, right? Oh, you
So-
don't put any energy into any of that other shit.
So there's
That's
a
interesting.
part of the brain that when you're not like engaged in a task, it's called the default mode network, where you start, thinking about yourself or thinking about your memories or like anything that doesn't have to do with doing a thing. And if you're closing up all your sensory pathways, what are you left with? your memories, your ego, all that stuff. So you're kind of narrowing the possibilities of that flow of neural activity to guide it in a certain direction, right? So
So is that like creating, like we were talking about, like damming one and creating,
Yes.
forcing neural activity
Yes.
and electrons to go into different passages that you aren't
yeah,
really
if you're not
used to
busy
operating?
hearing and processing that information or seeing and you're freeing up CPU for something else. So think of it in terms of like computing, right?
Yeah.
If your computer needs a huge fucking graphics card, you're not going to be doing other things, right? So if your brain is running all this fucking processing software, you're not going to be necessarily thinking about compassion if you're distracted by everything you're looking at, hearing, smelling, blah, blah, blah. Right?
Well, and that's that not being in the moment. Like most people, if you ask them, like, you know, how when you go to the grocery store, like, you know, would you ever just like scream at someone for bumping into you with your cart? You'd be like, well, I never would, right? But if you're in a rush and you're in a big hurry and then you're not paying attention and someone bumps into you and you're like, well, fuck you, man, what the fuck? You'd never consciously act like that. You'd never be like, well, when I go to the store today, I'm probably going to scream at someone in the parking lot, right?
Yeah,
But
the idea is to stop running the vehicle on autopilot,
Yeah.
because autopilot does a bunch of shit that you're like, fuck, maybe I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Autopilot is a consequence of your programming, and your program is a consequence of your rewards and punishments, your traumas as you've grown up. So the things that protect you the most are the most easily accessible things.
Yes.
They're the most convenient, the easiest, the most pleasure rewarding centers are the ones that are the ones that are difficult or hard or scare you steer away from. So anything that might be triggering, you stay away from, and anything that is pleasure sense based, you move towards from. So addiction,
Path of least resistance.
and the path of most pleasure. So people don't want to step into discomfort. They don't want to go into the ugly feelings in themselves. They don't want to remember the painful things. But that process is necessary for healing. You have to kind of open the wound, clean it out, and then heal it with compassion.
Yeah, and I think that's if you're just like kind of passively existing, right? Because I was just thinking too, like a lot of the things that I've gotten the most joy and excitement out of my life, though they've been very difficult. It's been the opposite. It's not been the easy route. It's been what's the difficult, scary thing to do, and then that's the really exciting, fun thing to do. And then you get kind of addicted to that because I started thinking about a lot of the things that I do enjoy.
Which can be a whole other
and I'm
ego
like,
trip.
to many other people, it's like, what do you got, a death wish? Why do you want to ride motorcycles and shit like that? And I'm like, no, this is like a mellow thing for me. Like, this is a controlled environment that I enjoy where I can be on that sort of edge without having to really feel like it's there because I know I'm going to be comfortable and I'm fine, right? And I never really thought of that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, with therapy, right? Like, I think ideally in therapy or ayahuasca or guided counseling or whatever trip you are, they want to, with compassion, and you've got a handler, you've got a hand holder to guide you into the scary, to guide you into the dark, what's it called? The dark cave, but you know you're in a safe place. As opposed to, I've dove into the void with no safety. You know, in Japan, I ended up in the hospital, ended up in the psych ward. When I was 29, you know, I ended up trying to kill myself. So you need to have an adult in those situations, right? You can't just like smash into your triggers and like, fuck it, let's just get there, you know, and because it's not going to be a good thing. But
that's every weekend in my 20s. Smash every trigger. Fuck it, let's get there. Yeah.
Well, to me, it was avoiding every trigger, anything I had to do, so I didn't have to look at the shit that I was trying to avoid, you know. Sure. And as I tried to sober up and then started doing my self work, looking directly at the stuff that I was really trying to avoid, I broke. You know, and that's my PTSD. You know what I mean?
And that's what everybody, I think, has the biggest problem with when they start doing shit like that. Is like when you see it and you actually have to accept, like, oh fuck, I'm responsible for that. It's so just like world shattering for people that they're like, I can't just blame somebody else. I can't just blame, even though I know that was a catalyst for it. Once I've had that realization and I know I have control, I can't continue to blame them because I fucking know now, and that sucks because it's really heavy. And like, no, I have to do all the fucking work, and why do I have to do all the work when it wasn't even me that broke me in the first place? But who the fuck else does it? Who else is gonna do the work for you, right? Like. That's I think that's how this whole fucking thing works. It's you have to take the fucking hard path, otherwise you don't ever get the fucking reward. It's that hero's journey we talked about, right? You don't fucking ever fight a dragon. When do you get a goddamn treasure? You stay on the farm, you fucking run a hoe, and that's it. You know what I mean?
that Sherry Huber book that I was reading, it's very interesting. She's like, so anything that you see in the world that you hate, you know, or that you dislike, whether it's on the internet, the right wing, the left wing, all of it, where's that in you?
Yep.
You know, I don't like racism. Where's racism in me?
Yeah.
And can I see it? All the things I recognize outside me saying, I don't like that about the world. Yeah. Look at yourself and do that shadow work and say, where exactly is that in me? And how do I express that exact thing that I hate in others? Because you wouldn't recognize it if it wasn't in you.
Yes.
You don't recognize those things if they don't already exist in you.
Yep.
But at the same time, don't beat the shit out of yourself, because all the things you love about the world, look at it and say, where's that in me? That compassion, kindness, generosity, you know, altruism. Where is that in me? Because it is there too.
Dude. That relaxed my neck. When
Yeah.
you said that, I was just like, oh yeah, you can do that. I can just stop putting energy into those negative fucking rivers and
Damn
just
the
focus on
pathways.
that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn the pathways.
Fuck yeah.
Well, you know, and it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. You know, I think it's important to recognize that all that ugliness that I hate about other things is in me. You know what I mean? That's because I got to balance my good and my. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm only good and everybody else is evil. Right? I'm the righteous one who does nothing wrong, and everybody else is like, you know, that no, that's not right.
That's delusional.
Yeah. Well, but then so is that I'm not worthy and everybody else is better than me.
Yeah.
That's delusional in the same way that I'm no good and everybody else is so much on a higher level. No, you deserve to be there as much as you want.
Extremes never usually work out well. There's always some kind of happy medium that seems to work better.
Yeah.
Yes, right? That's why they're extremes. Because otherwise they'd just be the way.
Right? Communism, fascism.
Yeah, exactly. If it just worked well on those ragged ends of that shit. What the fuck else were we just talking about? It's reminding me of something else. I'm about doing this in the middle of the podcast, just forgetting what I'm talking about.
Your shoulders lightened up from the
From just you even saying that right there, that was nice.
Yeah. Well, Sherry Huber, check out her books. Like one of them is That Which You Are Seeking Is Causing You to Seek. There's one called The Fear Book, and they're great. And there's usually a few exercises in every book that is kind of like mind shattering, but it's based on Zen meditation and what they get out of Zen retreats. And
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I fear that would be a big part of that. Like, because it's like, even if it's like you feel it overall, I'm not scared of anything, but it's like, well, ultimately, I'm scared of losing my job and then losing my safety net that I had and losing my house or whatever it is. Right?
Scared
like,
of being scared of things.
Right? Yes. Yeah. And again, like even pick a fucking racism. You know what I mean? What are you scared of at the core of that? No, I'm not scared of that. But ultimately, it's like I don't want someone to replace me. You know? And okay, well then that's the core fear of that, and it's irrational and ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's gross if you do that shadow work and you're like, that thing I hate, where is it in me? And then you find it. You're like, oh, I am that thing.
Yeah,
I did that.
That's what everybody has that problem with, right?
Yeah,
Because then it's hard, because then it gets to a point where you're like, well, fuck, I wanted to hold all these other people accountable at this certain level for
But not
this
me.
kind of shit, and now do I have to do that with myself? Every time I said, fucking asshole should go for jail for that kind of shit, you know, and you're like,
I should go for
fuck,
jail
that
for
is
that
what I
exact
said,
same
wasn't it? You know, and then you're like, well, do I have to do that? But I think here's the beauty of that is you don't. You absolutely don't. And you can figure out how to forgive those other people that at those times you were like, you know what, I'd fucking do this. You know, I'd say this, or I'd punch that guy for this. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't. And do you want that done to you for this? Because you've been that person. How the fuck do you want this shit to work?
I see this with the privilege discussion a lot. These people that are like, you're fucking privileged and you need to check your privilege and be brought down a notch. And this is what I'm going to do to make you fucking feel it. Cool. Because there's always going to be somebody that you're privileged to, too.
Yeah.
So are we going to go into the hood
Yeah.
and take your university educated ass, and those hood rats could say, you're fucking privileged and I'm going to take you down a notch. Cool. Hood rats from Canada, we're going to take you to Africa. And those African guys are going to be like, you fucking privileged guy, I'm going to take you down a notch, right?
Yeah, right.
And then we take the Africans, we introduce them to the animal kingdom. And the animals are like, hey, you privileged, you've been eating us for how many generations?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to take you down a notch. So
Where do we go from
everybody's-
there?
Right.
I want to know what's next.
well,
Is it Smurfs? Because I will talk Smurfs.
Well, right, vegetation.
You got any
Oh, well,
homunculus?
you've been eating us with impunity. You've never given us
there you
one
go.
thanks our entire
serious.
existence. So, like, everybody's on a hierarchy. Like,
Yep.
and if you're willing to forgive, you know, oh, yeah, fuck, you know, I am privileged. I am, and thank you. Thank you for my privilege. I appreciate being in the
If
position
you gave
I am.
it to me, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do my best to check it as much as I can and try and live more consciously, but Can you check your privilege too? Can we all be on here? Can we all be on the privilege checking?
It's generally speaking that privilege shaming kind of shit is people of privilege, because people who don't have privilege don't have time to go around privilege shaming motherfuckers.
They're not on Twitter.
They're busy
That's for
working.
fucking
They're
sure.
busy doing shit.
Yeah.
They're hustling around like some sort of modern day pirate, stealing people's Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Or they're on the corner selling crack so they can
shit.
buy diapers for
That's
their
another way
kid.
to go.
They're not sitting on Twitter saying, fuck, I'm mad at somebody's like
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss. I'm fucking mad at Dr. Seuss,
Mr.
you know?
Potato Head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Miss
And all these phony arguments, this phony outrage. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
I had a small outburst over that earlier this week. Somebody got it, and I was like, "Fuck, dude."
Yeah, I'm
just
doing my
don't even
best.
Start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, the world will turn, and potatoes will get labeled correctly.
Yeah, we should have never gendered potatoes, I don't think.
Well, here's the. I hope everyone that's ever hearing this understands this is absolutely marketing bullshit. Hasbro's an enormous company. Like, they're that
I bet if you
concerned
dug-
about the one fucking toy in their line that no one's bought in the last 25 fucking years, because who's buying a fucking any version of a potato head?
I bet you their sales are going up.
That's the
'Cause
whole point.
everyone's talking about it.
Here's what's happening. Their sales are going up and their overhead's going down because they had a fucking meeting and they said, look, we got to ditch this fucking thing. I said, no, what we do is we just rebrand it as the potato. We put all the accessories we got in one fucking box instead of putting them into two boxes, because this is just costing us double. And then we kind of hopefully recuperate that shit. And you know what? We heard a couple people on the internet saying maybe this is some shit that can happen. If it stirs up a little controversy, that's fine. It's only going to affect our sales positively. End of the meeting, right? It's not the right thing or the good thing. And even the Dr. Seuss thing was not public outcry. It was his family's estate looking at it and going, well, these 6 books, maybe we don't need to keep publishing them. They still exist. No one's taking them away. But like the one of them was the zoo one where like they had like black people in the zoo. You know what I mean? So maybe there's some stuff you're like, well, maybe the 6-year-olds don't need to read
But
this.
the other one, it's like a Chinaman that eats with sticks, is what it said.
See,
and
there
like
you go.
that's so.
So some of that stuff is like, you know, and again, this again wasn't public outcry causing this. This was his own estate looking at it and going, like, I don't know if we want to continue his legacy with this kind of book, you know, and people can still have it. And I guess if somebody wants to take their copies and run off a bunch of them, and it's something that no one really gives a fuck about, but it's a reason to go, well, see, they're telling us what we can look at and what we can read, and then making the false comparison of Cardi B's wet ass pussy and the fucking Dr. Seuss books being like, well, I guess I'll read the Song of the Year lyrics to my kids instead of the Dr. Seuss. And it's like, first off, if you don't understand that's a song for adults and this is a book for children, there's something fucking wrong with you, I guess.
Okay,
Then,
case
if you
in
think
point,
these are equivalent.
my daughter's grade 5 school dance was playing Nicki Minaj Anaconda.
Hey?
Okay.
So don't say that it's not happening. Like,
So,
that shit is
I know,
popular
I get
culture.
it. I get it.
And
It's just a song about snakes, Dad. I don't get it.
yeah. I let him hit it because he sells cocaine. Like, fuck. What a grade. My kid's in grade 5. It's
Yeah.
an elementary school dance, and little girls are twerking and singing this fucking song.
I know.
So
And I'm
you're
not saying it's
censoring
good.
Dr. Seuss, but
Nobody
this is
though.
popular
Nobody's
culture.
censoring Dr. Seuss. His own
Okay,
family
okay.
didn't want his
So-
legacy to be that.
so
and
let's
again,
dial it
two
back for a
different
second.
markets. The
Well,
fact that
and
he played
it's
in your
money.
kid's school,
It all
exactly.
boils down to
None
money.
of it's and even this is borderline the right thing. You know what I mean? But the potato head thing is entirely marketing.
So it's
bullshit.
Hasbro, right?
Yeah.
What other products does Hasbro put out there that don't give a flying fuck about women or gender or anything?
Exactly.
Are they part of Barbie? You know, like, who
Yeah,
the
I don't
fuck's
even know
putting
what they
Barbie
own,
out? Does
right?
Barbie have like
Yeah.
realistic? Okay, that's Mattel.
Well, and
realistic
they got
body
shit
Barbie
in the 90s. That's when Barbie got torn apart, because that was exactly that kind of stuff. And then they made a bunch of new different kind of Barbies, and people got upset because, well, that's not what Barbie looks like. And then nobody gives a shit now, right?
With people that are like wiping the faces off the Bratz dolls and like repainting them to be more realistic.
Oh,
I
is
think
that a
that's
thing?
wholesome and cute, but it's like
Smash 'em
And
with
that's
a
even
hammer.
a weird thing that exists, like the Bratz doll. That it's like
so hypersexual.
it is right, and it's like, you know exactly what the market is. It's children. There's no
It's
like
fucking weird.
It's they're weird that they even exist. So no, I agree that it is a crossover, but like the people in control of these crossover situations have to start realizing that this isn't for children. You know, like, again, Cardi B's music probably isn't for fucking children. Like, just the way Dr. Seuss isn't necessarily for adults.
Well, yeah.
But I guess if people
Or
are
people of
reading
color.
that letter, yeah, well, yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's not meant for you. It's an us thing, not for you.
What's that?
Dr. Seuss. No, just
Oh,
fucking
yeah,
around.
yeah.
Just
I was
fucking
like,
around.
I don't know what we're getting
dial
at
it
about
back. Dial it back. This is gonna go down a rabbit hole I don't even want to joke about.
Bit of a badger hole.
Yeah. Fuck you.
The ever tolerant badger.
Stick your hand in the hole. Fuck, you draw back a stump.
That's what I'm talking about. Some dogs you don't pet.
Everybody's
shit.
triggered.
Yeah.
That's what this is. Everybody's
Well, was there
triggered.
anything that we've been talking about or you wanted to get back into or anything else you kind of had? Because imagine, what are we pushing here? 2 hours?
Yeah, we're almost on there.
Probably getting an afternoon's worth.
Probably the last thing I wanted to talk about, going back to the whole pathways thing, is that it's not necessarily always just water and damming it and it just flows wherever it wants. You can also kind of liken the whole brain to like this giant tree, and if you know how that whole tree is structured and works, you can kind of be like, okay, well, I think today I'd like to prune the bonsai a little bit over here and shape that a little bit over there, or tie these two branches together so they make this pretty shape or whatever. So it's kind of like the more you know how your own brain and mind is structured, the more power you have to prune your own bonsai.
I like, well, hypnotherapy is why I started studying that. I got certified hypnotherapy. Same thing with meditation and all of these templates like chakra template, the Kabbalah template. Those are, through meditation, the hacking programs. If you want to look at, like, I like the model of looking at this world as a simulation. My experience in this world is a simulation. Let's just take that for granted as a hypothetical for a second. Now, by using these programs, whether it's yoga, meditation, kundalini, whatever, ritual, you are actually coding, you are hacking, you are bypassing the firewall and getting into the programming of your simulation, for good, bad, or ugly. Now, all of these old systems would say these are hidden techniques. Don't do Kundalini yoga. You will lose your shit because you are legitimately hacking your reality. You are going into your mind and you're saying, I want to access this part. No, right here. And you're jabbing a hole. I'm going there. And next thing you know, you get there and you're like, whoa, I shouldn't have done that. Can I go back? No, it's too late. So
it's like the
Cannot
people who
unsee.
use their computer and they start fucking with the underlying, processes that should be running. And I'm like, if you don't know how any of this shit works, maybe don't fuck with it. Is that kind of what you mean?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
You're gonna
funny.
break the computer.
Because the external religious stuff, whether it's Christianity or Judaism or Islam or fucking Buddhism or Hinduism, they start with a moral guideline. So you should probably not do this. You should probably do a little of this. You should be generous. You should cultivate compassion. You shouldn't fuck around. You should limit your intoxication. And then you can get into meditation, because then this stuff won't
Foundation.
show up malignantly when you get to that spot. Because any of that stuff you bypass, oh, fuck compassion. Oh, hi. I'm non-compassion.
Guess what the focus of your meditation is going to be.
Maybe I should have worked on that. So those are the preliminary things that you're supposed to do. And then that's, well, I don't even want to get into the technical, like, Vajrayana Buddhism is like that real hard meditation. I'm going to drill my way to enlightenment versus I think it's Mahayana, which is slow cultivation of compassion, kindness and compassion and generosity. And then when you get there, your lotus unfolds. The other one is a symbol of a lightning weapon that smashes through illusion, right?
Lightning weapon.
And
It's
what
kind of, if you're trying to grow that bonsai, it's like you can let the plant gently just kind of find its own way towards the sunlight, or you can like fucking put fertilizer and tie it up and
twist
shit.
it and cut off the stuff
Pull
you
its
don't
haircut
like.
names.
Yeah.
See, and that's dangerous, right? Because you don't really know. Like,
What if you kill the tree?
Well, that's the difference. I'm just picturing those two paths someone takes. You go that soft enlightenment path, or that hard breaking path. Exactly. You got a good chance you're going to die,
Highway
or
through
you're,
hell.
you're going to come back scarred, bruised, broken.
But you got there fast.
and hardened in different ways than you would through this one, but also hardened in different ways than you would with this one, right? You're resilient. You can deal with fucking the gnarly shit, the dirt, the blood, the piss, but you also didn't have time to be soft and gentle and shit, right? So when you're living in that same world with this one, it's like, I didn't have any of that shit. And you may still end up getting to the same place about the same time if it's enlightenment, right?
That's a good point, right?
One is a very painful fucking journey, but I mean, you gravitate towards what you gravitate towards, I guess.
Yeah, circumstances, traumas, choices that you made as an interdimensional thing,
Well, and
coalescing
again,
in the third
maybe
dimension.
some of the teaching us a lesson this time around kind of shit, right? I mean, if there's a reason I'm supposed to be in the fucking meat puppet of something that is drawn to the things that I am and whatnot, so it's teaching me lessons, I guess. I guess. When am I learning exactly?
Man, This is funny because we like to tout this this podcast is like biker punk rock guys, and then we end up going like fucking off the deep end in existential philosophy. Like, we're all right. That's
This is our illusion. Welcome to it.
yeah. This is number 30.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Follow Rebecca on Instagram.
Yeah.
Or
We'll throw her shit up
Facebook
on there.
say again how people can get a hold of you. How to spell that name.
Yeah, my name's a little weird. So REBECHKA_E or Rebechka Essiembre on Facebook. I might have to spell that one too.
Essiembre.
Yeah, everyone knows how to spell that, right?
It's like
So
25 letters.
Rebechka
gosh.
Essiembre.
Is Mrs. Rebechka Essiembre here? I'm like, no, she doesn't exist.
So,
Bye.
I think there's. Am I looking for 3 or 4 different people? It looks like they smashed their names all together on here. What a dickhead.
All right.
What the fuck we're doing here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wrapping it up. I guess
We are
So,
wrapping
yeah,
it up. We're
good.
over the 2 hour
That was
mark.
fun.
Ba-da-da-da-da-dun.
Russ is like, that's fucking done.
I really
All
need
right.
to pee too.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. This was fun.
This was fun.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.